Chapter 35-48. Hearing Liu Yi's confusion, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There are too many injustices in this world. As long as there are people, there will definitely be injustices. However, these injustices don't necessarily have to be taken care of. These injustices don't necessarily have to become fairness. Under the heavenly Tao, fairness and unfairness are normal. There is no such thing as absolute fairness. Take this scholar for example. He has the ability to solve his own problems and has people helping him. Why should this old man interfere? What's more, this scholar did not mention his name from the beginning to the end. Although this is a way to protect himself, deep down, he doesn't trust this old man at all. So why should this old man help him? Also, just from this scholar's actions, he might not be any more honorable than Commandant Situ who guards the gate. In this old man's opinion, Commandant Situ's heart is filled with sympathy. Guarding the gate is 100 times better than this scholar. Although this old man is the enemy of Copper Pillar State, helping this scholar without any reason is going against this old man's conscience," Xiao Hua said, and then told the story of Commandant Situ giving the vegetable farmer the copper coins. Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei fell into deep thought when they heard this. "That's right, Master. What is written in the 27th volume of Yu Shi Mingyang?" When you said it, that scholar's expression immediately changed. Wang Bianfei asked curiously. "That's a story about ungrateful people." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Presumably, that scholar has read it. However, the scholar's last words, understand the heavens, understand human relations, speak the holy words, understand the world." Which great scholar said this? Although this old man doesn't dare to say that he has read all of the classics, he has seen most of them. How come I have never seen them in the Jade Eyes? This scholar's origin is somewhat strange. After saying this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "No need to mention that scholar. This old man has already told you the location of Qian Yu Mountain. You can ride the Pegasus and slowly go there. You can go there in 3 or 4 days." Leading the two boys and identifying the direction was probably what Xiao Hua wanted them to do the most, right? "Yes, Master." Liu Yi obediently replied and didn't ask any more questions. However, Wang Bianfei was different. He smiled and said, "Master, the Jade Mountain in front of us is only a few thousand miles away. This Pegasus can probably reach it within a day and a night. Why do you need 3 to 4 days? It's clearly a trap. Why are you in such a hurry to jump into it?" Xiao Hua laughed. Let the monarch of Bronze Pillar Country be anxious for a few days. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua picked up the scroll again and glanced at it. He sighed with emotion and said, "This Confucian cultivator is really amazing. Reading a scroll is definitely not the same thing as exploring the Jade Eyes. From this scroll, not only can I read the meaning of Confucian cultivation, I can also sense the awe-inspiring qi gushing out between the lines. If you deliberately comprehend the awe-inspiring qi between heaven and earth and feel that it is incomparably majestic, this kind of cultivation method is much easier than my Dao sect's qi refining. What this old man doesn't understand the most is that this Confucian cultivator's true qi doesn't simply fall into the middle dantian. That true qi will also spread between heaven and earth and fuse with the awe-inspiring qi. Every Confucian cultivator will send out their true qi. In every era, more true qi will appear. No wonder the awe-inspiring qi in the hidden immortal continent is increasingly mellow and rich. It even has the precipitation of time. Once a Confucian cultivator is useful, this awe-inspiring qi will immediately obey his command. Isn't this similar to the inheritance of yarrow cultivators? Master said it so mysteriously. This little one also wants to practice Confucian cultivation. Liu Yi sat in front of Xiao Hua and said with a smile. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "That's not necessary. Our Dao sect's cultivation method is also extraordinary. Even our methods and divine abilities are more powerful. As long as you cultivate to the extreme, you can also achieve the effect of myriad streams returning to the origin. Moreover, if you want to cultivate secret techniques outside of Dao sect, you might as well refer to Buddhism." Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple was just joking. Liu Yi nodded. Then, He looked at Wang Bianfei, who was sitting beside him holding a talisman brush and fiddling with some talisman paper. He said with a wry smile, "This disciple's talent is stupid. Compared to junior brother, this disciple is far inferior. In the future, I will be satisfied if I can achieve 10% of master's achievements." Senior brother Wang Bianfei raised his head and said with a smile, "You are talking to master. Why are you talking about this little brother for no reason? Everyone's fate is different. Who knows who can go further?" Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Your talent is 100 times better than this old man's. As long as you put your heart into the Tao of heaven and cultivate bitterly, you will definitely be able to reach the realm of enlightenment. Senior brother, please wait a moment." Wang Bianfei faintly smiled and spread out the talisman paper. After thinking for a bit, the talisman brush moved. In a moment, a vivid image of a person appeared on the talisman paper. That person's face was somewhat distressed and also somewhat envious. It looked very lively. "Ha ha." Just as he finished drawing, Wang Bianfei laughed. "Wasn't this person Liu Yi's appearance just now?" "Junior brother." Liu Yi's face was somewhat red. He reached out and snatched the talisman paper. He said angrily, "I was just envious of you. You still have. Ayo, junior brother, you can actually draw yellow talismans?" "Oh, is that so?" Xiao Hua was also slightly stunned. He had taught Wang Bianfei the art of talisman making, but it was only the most rudimentary. It was even different from the yellow talismans he made. After all, Wang Bianfei didn't have any true qi and didn't know how to use true qi. "Master, look." Liu Yi said with a sad face, "I am your senior brother. How can I suddenly fall behind so many junior brothers? Just now, when this little one wanted to tear this portrait, I clearly felt the fluctuation of magic power on this talisman paper." Xiao Hua smiled as he took the talisman paper. He scanned it with his divine sense. Sure enough, between the lines of this portrait, there was a faint condensation of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Although it still couldn't be compared to yellow talismans, it was still able to condense true qi using talisman brush, talisman ink, and talisman paper. This was the most fundamental improvement. Genius, after all, you're a genius. Xiao Hua was somewhat speechless. He looked at Wang Bianfei's slightly uneasy appearance and said with a smile, "Correct, Bianfei, you can already draw yellow talismans. Right, how's the progress of your qi refinement technique?" "Disciple has already reached the peak of the first level of qi refinement. Perhaps within a day or two, I can break through to the second level of qi refinement." Wang Bianfei didn't dare to conceal anything. Under the ecstasy in his heart, he honestly replied. Xiao Hua nodded. He understood. For the first 4 levels of qi refinement, the disciples of ordinary cultivation sects would generally reach the first level in a year. Wang Bianfei's speed couldn't be considered too shocking. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua indifferently said, "Correct. Don't be in a hurry to break through to the first level of qi refinement. Stay at the peak of the first level for a few more days and comprehend the mysteries within." "Yes, disciple understands," Wang Bianfei hastily replied. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, "You have a talent that's superior to others in the field of painting. I'm afraid that this Tao of talismans is destined to be stronger than others. However, what this old man is going to teach you now is still the most common, or perhaps the most common talisman crafting techniques. You should first practice and focus on comprehending the wonders of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. To be specific, use your heart as the brush, use your true qi as the ink, and heaven and earth as the canvas. Thread, paint between heaven and earth." Wang Bianfei's eyes lit up all of a sudden, flashing with a rare fanaticism. He almost couldn't restrain his voice as he said in a low voice, "Master, this is precisely this disciple's dream since childhood." Xiao Hua said and returned the portrait to Wang Bianfei. He already understood that his talisman crafting techniques and the Tao of formations should be able to be passed on to Wang Bianfei. "Senior brother." Wang Bianfei took the portrait and respectfully handed it to Liu Yi, saying, "This is the first work of this little brother that contains true qi in this life. I respectfully offer it to senior brother. I hope that senior brother can cherish it." "Good." Liu Yi smiled. Although he was somewhat envious in his heart, he was more happy. Taking the portrait with both hands, Liu Yi carefully put it away in his bosom. Liu Yi, how's your cultivation? Xiao Hua asked again. This old man brought you out to give you pointers. If this foundation isn't laid properly, it will be difficult in the future. In the past, this old man spent countless thoughts in order to consolidate his Tao foundation. I would rather not step into the second level of qi refinement. Fortunately, Zhong Qingxiao and Xiao Shenrue weren't here. Otherwise, after hearing Xiao Hua's words, they would have immediately fallen from the flying carriage. It wasn't that he didn't want to advance, it was that he couldn't advance no matter what. Yes, this disciple understands. The foundation is more important than anything else. This disciple will definitely follow Master's word. Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei respectfully replied. Although Liu Yi had met Xiao Hua earlier and also came into contact with qi refinement techniques earlier, he awakened his spirit later than Wang Bianfei. His aptitude was also a bit worse than Wang Bianfei's. Although he had already stepped into the first level of qi refinement, there was still a distance from the so-called peak. After Xiao Hua asked, he gave them some pointers and let them comprehend it themselves. Xiao Hua's own cultivation was mostly done by himself. Therefore, he was also the same when teaching disciples. He only told them the techniques and comprehensions, and later let them figure it out themselves. Perhaps this was the legendary like teacher, like disciple? Xiao Hua naturally didn't need to worry about the heavenly horse. It spread its wings and slowly flew in the sky, looking so carefree. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over. Seeing nothing strange, he sent his consciousness into the space. The green-robed Xiao Hua had already returned from the nascent soul in his lower dantian to the space. He was sitting cross-legged in the sky, facing the shabby immortal execution stage. Strands of lightning fell from the immortal execution stage and entered the green-robed Xiao Hua's body. Seeing this, Jade Archive Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. Fellow Daoist, please. Jade Archive Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, I don't know what fellow Daoist is doing. Do our techniques have this kind of secret cultivation technique? Fellow Daoist. The green-robed Xiao Hua opened his eyes and said in a low voice, all techniques are created by someone. Isn't fellow Daoist's foundation establishment technique also created by yourself? Why can't I figure out a cultivation technique by myself? Relying on this lightning to temper the body? It doesn't seem to be a secret technique. Jade Archive Xiao Hua was somewhat bewildered. The green-robed Xiao Hua stood up, and the lightning disappeared. He sighed and said, fellow Daoist doesn't know, I discovered a secret while I was controlling my nascent soul. -12. Chapter 3549. Yes, I know this. It should be the secret of the 5 qi righteous thunder. Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. This secret was also a big question in his heart. Green-robed Xiao Hua said again, yes. Now, my nascent soul can already condense its body and condense its Tao foundation in the 5 qi righteous thunder. But I have doubts again. Why can the 5 qi righteous thunder condense the nascent soul's body and let it grow quickly, but why can't the lightning produced by the immortal execution stage in my space? Even the lightning tribulation and so on that fellow Daoist experienced before, also can't? Jade Archive Xiao Hua touched his nose and said with a bitter smile, this heavenly thunder looks the same, but I'm afraid it's divided into many types. I remember before in Star Picking Tower, didn't I also hear about heavenly thunder and earthly thunder? Gangshin metal thunder, Shinyu metal thunder, Jiuyi wood thunder, Bingding fire thunder and Wuji earth thunder. The 5 qi righteous thunder might be different from the lightning tribulation and other heavenly thunder, right? Not necessarily. Green-robed Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. A ball of lightning appeared in his palm. The lightning flashed and countless mysteries were annihilated. Even the Jade Archive Xiao Hua couldn't see through it with a glance. This poor Daoist knows that the birth of lightning and the destruction of lightning is the beginning of life. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is also born along with the lightning strikes. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seems to be dead, or it could be said that it is lifeless. It doesn't have the vitality of heaven and earth like the noble qi. This is also the difference between my Tao sect's divine ability and Confucian's divine ability. Then why is there life in the righteous qi? It should be related to the 5 qi, right? It should also be related to Confucian's 5 qi unification, right? Yes. Jade Archive. Xiao Hua naturally understood what green-robed Xiao Hua said. He nodded and said, although my Tao sect also pays attention to the 5 elements, Tao sect's 5 elements are all over the world. Confucian's 5 elements are in the body. Since it's in the body, it's alive, not dead. Tao sect emphasizes the 5 elements, Confucian cultivators emphasize the 5 qi. Although they both involve metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, there's an essential difference. Perhaps there's no essential difference, but at the peak of cultivation, there's an essential difference. Green-robed Xiao Hua continued. Sometimes, the myriad streams may not return to the origin. We haven't obtained the true 5 qis unification yet, so we can't make a generalization. Jade Archive. Xiao Hua shook her head. Fellow Daoist, have you ever wondered what the yuan of the 5 qis unifications is? Is it the yuan of the vital energy of heaven and earth? The yuan of the spirit-slaying vital light? Yuan is the origin of the heavens, the central meaning. When the 5 qis gather in the origin, it means that the 5 qis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability. However, the green-robed Xiao Hua shook his head. I also had the same thought before I took control of my nascent soul and received the baptism of the 5 qis righteous thunder. However, after witnessing the boundless vitality of a nascent soul under the effects of the 5 elements righteous thunder, I no longer think so. Fellow Daoist, you mean that this yuan is one? Xiao Hua frowned, and his eyes flashed with a 5-colored brilliance. That's right. The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. From the perspective of my Taoism, it is Tao begets one. Yuan was life. Life and death. Hiss. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. Rumble. The wind and clouds in the entire space began to violently change, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Fellow Daoist, what you said earlier about when the 5 qis gather in the origin, it means that the 5 qis take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme divine ability was also explained from the perspective of my Taoism's pursuit of divine ability. The green-robed Xiao Hua continued, Fellow Daoist, have you ever thought that all the cultivation paths in this world might not necessarily be the pursuit of divine ability, might not necessarily be the pursuit of power, and might not necessarily be the pursuit of longevity? If all of them were like the Taoism's pursuit of power and bravery, wouldn't this world be simple? Would it not be gorgeous and colorful? Fellow Daoist, think again about that little thunder and the insect eggs under our feet. Why haven't they awakened after the separation of yin and yang? That little thunder also awakened after going out and being bombarded by the 5 qis righteous thunder, right? Boom. The entire space seemed to have suddenly turned dark, and then suddenly brightened. Xiao Hua cried out involuntarily, could it be that the path of Confucian cultivation is the path of life? The goal of Confucian cultivation? Then the mystery of the heavenly book is not the divine ability to reach the heavens, but the profound life. Now that Confucian cultivation has given birth to 100 schools of thought, did they all cultivate wrongly? Or were they all misunderstood by others? After they annihilated my Taoism, they envied the power of my Taoism's magic and pursued the effects of magic? If so, then it can explain why the noble spirit has vitality and why Shinshin can't understand the heavenly book even though he has it. If Confucian cultivation is life, then what about death? Xiao Hua frowned again. Could it be the Buddhist sect? Death. The green-robed Xiao Hua shrugged and laughed. Although the Buddhist sect can interfere with the 6 paths of reincarnation and emphasize reincarnation cultivation, if you say they cultivate the path of death, I don't think so. Only the yin side of the space beneath us has the qualifications to say the word death. Then what is the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation? Xiao Hua didn't understand. The green-robed Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You have to ask that baldy up there. He recites Buddhist scriptures every day and has already formed a 5th-grade golden lotus. I'm afraid he will soon reach the 9th grade. At that time, even if you don't ask him, Mahavairokkana will come to find you and tell you the foundation of the Buddhist sect in person, right? Yes. Xiao Hua understood. The Buddhist scriptures and Dharma of the exquisite temple were the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. Moreover, he also knew that the Sarira of the Buddhist sect should be the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. However, he didn't know what the Sarira was used for. Although the dark clouds are thick and the night is bleak, the sun and light will always appear. Everything will be revealed one day. Xiao Hua raised his head slightly and pointed his finger. The clouds in the sky scattered and the sky opened. It was a sunny day. The green-robed Xiao Hua took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This space is still the best. I can do whatever I want. Being in that nascent soul's body is really suffocating. Fellow Daoist, don't be lazy." Xiao Hua stretched and said, "Although our future is bright, we have also provoked a lot of trouble. Liu Yi, Wang Bianfei, Qin Xiaoyaro, and the others seem to have a problem with the seal of the spiritual aura sky. We have to hurry up and cultivate." Fine. The green-robed Xiao Hua quickly waved his hand. "I was just forced to work by you. I just rested for a moment, and you're noisy again. Why don't you find someone else?" "Who else is there?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, looked at the sky and said, "Fellow Daoist, heavenly law is like a dream, I can't find his trace. Fellow Daoist, karma is like a huge monster, never listening to us. Fellow Daoist, soul cultivator specializes in guarding the mysterious dark clouds. Fellow Daoist, Longmai controls fate and cultivates different from us. Fellow Daoist, Confucian cultivator is now immersed in the 5 Qis unification and wants to uncover the mystery of Confucian cultivator. Fellow Daoist, Buddhist cultivator, oh, I'm afraid he can't be called fellow Daoist anymore. He should be bitterly cultivating Buddhist Dharma, wanting to achieve Namo Metriya Buddha. Fellow Daoist, Phoenix body is free, but he cultivates heavenly law embodiment technique and heavenly body empowerment technique, so he can't enter the space. Fellow Daoist, do you think I can order him around? Moreover, he is also tempering his bones and practicing the Big Dipper magical fist. That light escape technique is the foundation of our cultivation. There are 10 of us, can we split it? Alas, fellow Daoist, if you knew this, why didn't you split a few more primordial spirits? The green-robed Xiao Hua sighed. How would I know that I can't split my primordial spirit after going through the 3 gold lightning tribulation? Jade Archive Xiao Hua shrugged. I thought that I could split it at will in the future, so I didn't think too much about it. However, now that I think about it, I'm afraid that there will be problems no matter how many primordial spirits there are. Not to mention that the Phoenix Dharma body hasn't returned yet. We recently took in a devil spirit as a little brother. Even that bone-tempering fellow Daoist is somewhat unruly. If we can't get along well in the future, I will be in even greater trouble. Forget it. You can go. The green-robed Xiao Hua waved his hand. I know. That is Shan Jun's cultivation method, Jade Talisman refining technique, and especially the teleportation formation you want. I will work hard on it. I won't delay you. After you take out the gold and wood elemental magnetism, you can set up a large formation there. Fellow Daoist Nose Eyes Heart. Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands. I will go. Oh, don't worry. Before you go out, take a look at Little Yellow. This little guy seems to have some problems. The green-robed Xiao Hua seemed to say casually, cupped his hands, and disappeared. Jade Archive Xiao Hua was stunned. He waved his hand and saw Little Yellow appear in front of him. Sure enough, as the green-robed Xiao Hua said, Little Yellow was somewhat dispirited. Jade Archive Xiao Hua muttered to himself, thinking that when Little Yellow went out, it seemed to be like this. When Jade Archive Xiao Hua looked carefully, he didn't see anything wrong with Little Yellow. Little Yellow. Jade Archive Xiao Hua said. Mother. At this time, Little Yellow woke up from its absent-minded state and answered in surprise. However, it didn't jump into Jade Archive Xiao Hua's arms as lively as before. Instead, it swayed its tail slightly, looking very calm. Are you feeling unwell? Jade Archive Xiao Hua said with a smile, if there's anything, Feel free to tell Mother. It's nothing. Little Yellow turned its neck in boredom. Boy just feels bored. Bored? What do you mean? Jade Archive Xiao Hua didn't understand. Are you feeling uncomfortable at home? Or? Mother, Little Yellow said with some embarrassment. Home is very good, there is nothing uncomfortable, but because it is too comfortable, it is not as exciting as outside. Moreover, Mother is so awe-inspiring outside, able to kill so many bad people, upholding justice, seeing injustice on the road, pulling out a sword to help. Boy can't be like Mother. Ah! Jade Archive Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. He looked at Little Yellow in disbelief and asked curiously, where did you know about Mother? Do you know what upholding justice is? Pulling out a sword to help when seeing injustice on the road? Mother. Little Yellow swayed its tail and seemed to be smiling. This is all from Wang Bianfei. What? Wang Bianfei? Jade Archive Xiao Hua was even more dumbfounded. When did you see him? Oh, not good. -12. Chapter 3550. Suddenly, Jade Archive Xiao Hua seemed to understand something. He sent Wang Bianfei into the space and sealed the space around Wang Bianfei, but he didn't forget what kind of person Wang Bianfei was. He was the most dreamer in the world. In this guy's dream, he seemed to be able to see Little Yellow. Little Yellow's dream? Thinking for a moment, Jade Archive Xiao Hua lovingly asked, what do you think? Boy wants to leave home and go out to sea. Little Yellow said without hesitation, as if he had been thinking about it for a long time, and now he finally had a chance to say it. However, looking at Little Yellow's pitiful appearance, his little claws slightly clasped together, as if he was afraid of angering Jade Archive Xiao Hua. Jade Archive Xiao Hua didn't get angry, he just remained silent for a long time. He didn't regret sending Wang Bianfei to the space, he just felt a bit of pain in his heart. He was reluctant to part with Wang Bianfei. Jade Archive Xiao Hua had always treated Wang Bianfei as his own child, a child that would never grow up. Naturally, Wang Bianfei hadn't changed much after so many years. However, he didn't expect that this child would finally grow up, spread his wings and fly high, and create his own world. The reluctance in Jade Archive Xiao Hua's heart was the kind of joy and reluctance of a parent. Mother, don't be angry. Little Yellow whispered, Boy knows that if Boy isn't here, Mother will definitely miss him. Boy guarantees that Boy is just going out to sea, and will be back soon. Ari. Jade Archive Xiao Hua sighed and asked, what about Little Black? What does he think? Little Black, he also wants to go out, but he said he will listen to Mother. Mother doesn't want him to go, so he won't go. Little Yellow honestly replied. He also said that to Boy. Ha ha. Jade Archive Xiao Hua laughed. If Little Yellow was a rebellious child, then Little Black was a good boy, so Jade Archive Xiao Hua waved his hand, and Little Black appeared in the air. Father, you came. Little Black was obviously more lively than Little Yellow, circling around Jade Archive Xiao Hua. I heard that you also want to leave home and go out to take a look. Xiao Hua extended his hand, and Little Yellow and Little Black both landed in his hand as he lovingly asked. Yes, Goldie said that the outside world is very interesting. The boy really wants to see it. But Boy should listen to Mother. In fact, it's also very good to stay at home. Little Black was rather straightforward and spoke very quickly. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded and said with a smile, in the past, it was all Father's fault. Because I loved all of you, I didn't want all of you to come out. Even when Father was in danger, I didn't want all of you to take risks. But you're going to grow up eventually, so it's normal for you to go out and take a look. Alright, I'll listen to Daddy. Little Black seemed to be heartless. Goldie was overjoyed and hurriedly cried out, Thank you, Mother, thank you, Mother. Where's Little Silver? Jade Archive Xiao Hua seemed to think of something and asked. Little Silver is still young, why would it leave home? Little Yellow immediately acted like an elder as he replied. His tone was similar to what Xiao Hua had said to him. Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled slightly and waved his hand, and Little Silver also appeared in the air. When Little Silver saw Jade Archive Xiao Hua, it immediately stood up in the air and cupped its hands in greeting. It then flew to Little Yellow's side and snuggled up to it. Little Silver. Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked, "Your mother is going to leave home. Are you going with her?" "Of course." Little Silver's voice was a little low. "What are you going to do?" Little Yellow scolded. "You stay at home obediently. It won't be too late to go out when you grow up. Millimeter, boy should listen to mother." Little Silver was very afraid of Little Yellow. Hee hee. Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. 3 rejuvenation pills appeared out of thin air and he said, "The 3 of you, take these." "Yes, mother." "Yes, father." The 3 little things opened their mouths, and the 3 rejuvenation pills immediately fell into their mouths. Watching the 3 little ones take the rejuvenation pills, Jade Archive Xiao Hua pondered for a moment. He indeed had a lot of treasures, but the 3 little ones couldn't use many of them. Or rather, it could be said that he didn't know what to give them. "Take a rest after taking the pills," Jade Archive Xiao Hua said. Xiao Hua of the Jade Archive said, "After a few days, father will send you out and let you see what's going on outside." "Yes, father." Little Black agreed very obediently, but there was already some reluctance in his voice. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiao Hua couldn't help feeling a little sad. He looked at Little Yellow again and saw only excitement. It was likely that its heart had already been set on its way. Ari. Xiao Hua's heart had never ached as much as this time when he came out of the space. Sighing, Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and berated, "Wang Bianfei, come here." "Ah! Master." Wang Bianfei seemed to have never seen Xiao Hua so angry before. His body trembled and he anxiously said, "What's the matter, disciple?" "Disciple is right beside you. On the way back from home, what kind of dream did you have?" Xiao Hua asked somewhat angrily. "Ah!" Wang Bianfei was surprised. He really admired Xiao Hua to the point of prostrating himself before him. He actually knew that he had a lot of dreams. "Master." Wang Bianfei didn't dare to hide anything and honestly replied, "Disciple dreamed of a little yellow sable. This little sable could speak human language." He bragged to Disciple, saying that his mother was incomparably powerful and could split heaven and earth. "Master, if this isn't bragging, then what is? Isn't this little sable's mother the old sable?" "How is that possible?" Thus, Disciple told him about Master, saying that Master could kill a demonic dragon and could kill people from 1,000 miles away. Disciple also said many stories that Disciple heard from Mother. That little sable was a trash that hadn't seen the world, so Disciple said that he had nothing to say. He also said that his mother was very strict with him and wouldn't let him leave home. Disciple said that you wouldn't sneak away. It's really boring at home, outside is more fun. "Shut up." Xiao Hua said angrily, "This old man is the mother that little sable spoke of." "Ah! How is that possible?" Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. He hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed, "Master, please forgive me, Master." Disciple didn't know. Disciple didn't know. Humph. Xiao Hua was both angry and amused. He didn't know how to reprimand Wang Bianfei. Presumably, Wang Bianfei had put all those stories that his mother told him on his head. Little Huang was originally the trash that Wang Bianfei said had never seen the world. Now that he was here, he even called Xiao Hua mother. How could little Huang win against him? However, looking at Wang Bianfei, Xiao Hua thought about Little Yellow. He said that Wang Bianfei's mother spoiled Wang Bianfei too much, but didn't he also spoil Little Yellow and Little Black? The 2 were obviously extremely powerful demonic beasts, yet he was never willing to let them out. It was also his spoiling that caused the 2 to have shallow knowledge. Thinking about it this way, Wang Bianfei didn't do anything wrong. If it wasn't for Wang Bianfei's dream, if it wasn't for him drawing a gorgeous world for Little Yellow, how could Little Yellow have the heart to run away from home? Wouldn't he be delaying the 2 little things? "Get up." Xiao Hua waved his hand, "This can't be blamed on you. This old man put you into the Qiankuan bag. This old man still has 2 little things inside. It's fine if you don't know, but in the future, don't say too many impetuous and unrealistic words." "Yes, Disciple understands." Wang Bianfei lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. Alas, I'm afraid these exaggerated words were taught by that little monk Jiyu Nian. Xiao Hua sighed. After a long while, seeing that Xiao Hua's face had calmed down, Wang Bianfei whispered, Master, disciple also saw a little monk in his dream. Oh! Which little monk? Jiyu Nian? Xiao Hua didn't care and just answered casually. But just as he said that, his face was startled and he hurriedly said, You're not talking about Jiyu Nian? Is it really a little monk? Of course, there was a little monk in the space, and that was Jiang Liuer. However, what puzzled Xiao Hua was that Jiang Liuer didn't look like a monk. How come he became a little monk in Wang Bianfei's dream? At this point, Wang Bianfei's face also showed a puzzled expression, and he replied, Master, that little monk was said to be a little monk, but there was a very big virtual image. I'm afraid it was more than 100 feet in size. Moreover, the little monk was trekking with difficulty and didn't pay attention to disciple. No matter what disciple said to him, he would only recite Buddhist scriptures. Once the Buddhist scriptures were recited, the Buddha's virtual image would shine with Buddhist light. Countless dragons and women, as well as extremely beautiful words, looked very arrogant. Disciple simply couldn't get close. Oh right, there were many Buddha statues and people in that Buddhist light. What was this monk reciting? Hearing the golden body that was more than 100 feet in size, Xiao Hua's face lit up with joy, and he asked again. This, how would disciple remember? Wang Bianfei smiled bitterly. Is it? Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when walking the deep prajna parameter, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering? Surya, form is not different from emptiness is not different from form is emptiness is form. Xiao Hua almost couldn't wait, and in one breath, he recited the Prajna Parameter Heart Sutra. Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. How could he understand Buddhist scriptures? At first, he was simply confused, but when he heard form is emptiness is form, his face lit up with joy. However, he didn't dare to say anything, fearing that Xiao Hua would be angry. He only waited for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, then he opened his mouth and said, Master, it is precisely this. Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. The anger in his heart seemed to lessen. After a while, Xiao Hua somewhat strangely asked, This monk has been walking all this time? Yes, Master, he has been walking all this time, without stopping. Wang Bianfei said with a smile. Disciple asked him how long he had been walking, and where he wanted to go, but he didn't answer at all. His eyes were looking straight ahead. Ari, this child. Xiao Hua sighed. Yes, as Wang Bianfei said, Jiang Liuer has already been dead for more than 100 years, and he has been walking all this time, but he has been walking for more than 100 years. His heart is very tired. Master. Wang Bianfei seemed to want to ask something, but he didn't dare to, looking somewhat pitiful. -12. Chapter 3551. However, at this time, Liu Yi at the side opened his mouth. Master, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, when walking the deep prajna parameter, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering. Surya, form is not different from emptiness is not different from form is emptiness is form, the same goes for feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness. Surya is the emptiness of all dharmas, neither created nor destroyed, neither impure nor clean, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, there is no form in the air, no feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no color, no sound, no smell, no touch, no vision, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, no age, no death, no suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment. Because there is no attainment. Bodhisattva, according to prajna parameter, there is no worry in the heart. Am I right? Yes, not bad. Xiao Hua was somewhat absent-minded and answered casually, but when he finished, he was dumbfounded again and hurriedly said, Liu Yi, you remember it clearly? Yes, Master, I remember it clearly. Liu Yi answered in a low voice, very carefully, as if he was afraid of Xiao Hua's anger. Wang Bianfei, what about you? Xiao Hua turned his head and asked. Wang Bianfei shook his little head like a rattledrum. My head hurts when I hear this, I can't remember it at all. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed, looking at Liu Yi's careful fear. He waved his hand and said, Liu Yi, no need to be afraid, in my eyes there is no distinction between Taoism and Buddhism. This Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra has already been cultivated by others. You don't have to follow in their footsteps. This old man has some heart sutras left behind by Buddhism. Take a look and see which one suits you. This old man will guide your Buddhism cultivation. Thank you, Master. The fear on Liu Yi's face disappeared, and confidence appeared in his eyes again. Master. Wang Bianfei at the side said in surprise, you also know how to chant sutras? Disciple really admires you. I want to uphold justice, I want to help when I see injustice on the road, I want to kill people from 1,000 miles away, how can I not know some Buddhism? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at Wang Bianfei and said in a bad mood. Wang Bianfei stuck out his tongue and hurriedly said with a smile, yes, Master is right. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Hua took out a booklet and handed it to Liu Yi. This is the text used to record the Buddhist scriptures. Take a look. Although there are some Buddhist scriptures written in the language you understand in the hidden immortal continent, they have lost their original meaning. When you understand these words, this old man will show you the Buddhist scriptures. Yes, Master. Liu Yi took it carefully. Xiao Hua looked at Wang Bianfei and said, if your senior martial brother doesn't understand, you can give him pointers with all your heart, just like what he taught you that day. Me? Wang Bianfei was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. However, when he received the scroll, he immediately smiled and said, Senior brother, don't worry. I understand all of this. I can teach it to you right now. Thank you, junior martial brother. Liu Yi was overjoyed. Looking at Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei supporting each other, Xiao Hua smiled. In fact, the Buddhist sect's sutras emphasized nothing. What they pursued was to smile while picking up flowers. Xiao Hua's Buddha Sariya could also do this. However, Xiao Hua felt that letting Liu Yi slowly comprehend the sutras by himself and let the two brothers deepen their relationship would be better than just using his finger. As the saying goes, teaching is easy, but cultivating is difficult. Isn't it exactly like this? Although Qianyu Mountain's name has the word Yu, in fact, it has nothing to do with jade. Even the pitch-black stone wall flickering with a faint phosphorescent light and black gas, even in the daytime, it gave birth to a kind of cold and eerie feeling, not to mention that it was already night. Although there was a crescent moon in the sky, the moonlight couldn't make Qianyu Mountain give birth to the color of jade no matter what. Qianyu Mountain was also not an ordinary mountain peak, it was only a special place in a mountain range. This mountain range was normal, there were trees and water. However, at Qianyu Mountain, pitch-black poisonous water seeped out from the mountain rocks. This black water was incomparably stinky and corrosive. Not to mention bones, even ordinary stones would be turned into nothingness if thrown in. This black water that seeped out condensed into a pool at the bottom of the mountain. It was about several mu in size. Qianyu Mountain soared into the sky from this pool, separated from the mountain range by this indescribable black water. Qianyu Mountain was not only pitch black on the surface, but the mountain was even more precipitous. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, there was no mountain path at all, it was like the whole mountain was made of iron and stone. In the entire mountain, there was only a cave at the waist of the mountain that led to the outside. In front of that cave, there was a long chain bridge. Only when this several jong long chain bridge stretched out, could one walk from the chain bridge to the stone cliff opposite Qianyu Mountain. Below the chain bridge was naturally the indescribable black water. In fact, not to mention the fact that Qianyu Mountain had no mountain path, even if there was one, no one would be able to walk from the bottom of the mountain to the top through the stinky black water. This dangerous Qianyu Mountain was the best place to imprison criminals. All of the heinous criminals in Copper Pillar Country were imprisoned in Qianyu Mountain. Because of this, Qianyu Mountain's reputation spread far and wide. Outsiders only remembered Qianyu Mountain and ignored the name of the entire mountain range. At this moment, the night was quiet. This was the case in Copper Pillar Country and even more so in the surrounding mountains. The infamous Front Jade Mountain also became more and more desolate. From time to time, the howls of evil beasts could be heard. Occasionally, there would be screams coming from within the front Jade Mountain. Other than these sounds, there were also some strange noises. People couldn't help but think of the souls of the dead who died here. They couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. Who would come here at night? However, just a few li away from Qianyu Mountain was a mountain forest that wasn't very tall. At this moment, the forest was very quiet. When the mountain wind blew, there were actually many black shadows crawling between the rocks. These black shadows couldn't be seen from a distance and could only be faintly seen when the faint starlight fell from the sky. Roughly counting these black shadows, there were at least a few hundred people. At the edge of the mountain forest, there was a protruding mountain rock. Behind the mountain rock, there were several people. These people's eyes were bright as they looked in this direction. Although no one said anything, the slight uneasiness in their eyes revealed the anxiety in their hearts. The wind blew gently, lifting everyone's clothes. A slightly old voice sounded, "Young Master Zhu, today is a little strange. It seems a little different from what young master said." The voice came from a white-haired old man at the front. "Ah, Senior Dao Hong, is there something different here?" A voice sounded. This voice came from a young master beside the old man. Although it was night time, he was still wearing a brocade robe. He was the undecided scholar that Xiao Hua met at the city gate of the Bronze Pillar country. This young master Zhu paused for a moment and explained as if he was reading a book. Qianyu Mountain is guarded by General Mo of the Bronze Pillar country. General Mo's strength is at the 3rd grade of elemental energy. Among the generals of the Bronze Pillar country, he is considered to be above average. Accompanying General Mo to guard Qianyu Mountain is the Mo army under his command. There are about 6,000 people and they are all outstanding soldiers of the Bronze Pillar country. General Mo has 6 deputy generals. Of these 6 deputy generals, 4 of them are guarding the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain. The other 2 are leading 2,000 soldiers to guard the mountain range in front of Qianyu Mountain. This is the army camp that we saw in front of us. According to the information I received, there are 4,000 soldiers guarding Qianyu Mountain. They are divided into 3 groups. Young Master Zhu still wanted to say more. The old man waved his hand and said, "Young Master Zhu, there is no need to say more. This old man already knows all of this. The information that you said is the usual arrangement. Didn't you see it? Right now, there are so many tents in the army camp. How is it the scale of 2,000 people? If it is 4,000 people, it would be more than that." Young Master Zhu was a little hesitant. He looked into the distance and said honestly, "Senior, this junior can't see it." It's fine if you can't see it." The old man named Dao Hong nodded. "Tonight is a little inappropriate. In this old man's opinion, why don't we turn back tonight? We can talk about it when we have the chance in the future." Senior is right. The Bronze Pillar country's capital has suddenly increased its security. This really caught this junior off guard and I almost couldn't enter the city to pay my respects to Senior. Young Master Zhu was always someone who didn't have his own opinions. Once he heard the old man's words, he immediately agreed. But before young Master Zhu's words landed, an old man beside him said unhappily, "Young Master, old Master has been captured by the King of Bronze Pillar country for more than a year. Right now, we don't know if he is alive or dead. Our spies in Qianyu Mountain can't even see old Master. If we wait any longer, I fear it will be disadvantageous to old Master." Ouch! Right at this moment, a faint scream came from several kilometers away. Young Master Zhu's body trembled, and he echoed, "That's right, Senior Dao Hong. We don't have many chances. The longer we delay, the more difficult it is to guarantee my father's safety. Why don't we barge in tonight? That Minute Mo General is only at the 1st tier of the 3rd grade of elemental energy, 1 grade lower than you." "Ah!" Dao Hong sighed and said with a grimace, "This old man only coveted young Master's golden core method. Today, I fear that I will really lose my life here. Didn't young Master say earlier?" News of Bronze Pillar country has spread like wildfire recently. Imperial Preceptor Lung Chinga died in Black Cloud Ridge. Jiang country's Changling princess raised her flag next to Bronze Pillar country. How can Bronze Pillar Country not increase their security at Qianyu Mountain? It does not matter if this old man dies here, but young Master Zhu does not value your own life? This senior's words are reasonable. Young Master Zhu was out of ideas again. He said with a frown, this is the most sensitive time for Bronze Pillar Country. If we rashly, young master, you are so smart all your life, but stupid this time. The old man beside him almost jumped up. He looked like he expected better from young Master Zhu. He suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, it is because Bronze Pillar Country is at its most critical time that their attention will be on Black Cloud Ridge, the capital, and Jiang Country. They will not pay attention to Qianyu Mountain. Only now is the best time for us to enter Qianyu Mountain and rescue Old Master. -12. Chapter 3552. That's right, Senior Xian is right. Young Master Zhu immediately changed his mind. Now that the Bronze Pillar Nation isn't paying attention to the Qianyu Mountain, it's the most advantageous place for us. Senior Dao Hong, I felt that the increase in soldiers you mentioned was a bit strange, but now that I think about it, I'm afraid they sent more soldiers to guard the mountain because General Mo returned to the Bronze Pillar Nation, right? It should be a trick to deceive everyone. Moreover, these soldiers are no more than ants in your eyes. Why do you care? Fellow immortal Dao Hong. That Senior Xian couldn't help but say, will attract the attention of the Bronze Pillar Nation's soldiers. Fellow immortal, you can use your divine ability to enter the Qianyu Mountain. Fellow immortal, don't worry, the map drawn by the soldiers we bribed at the Qianyu Mountain is definitely correct. As long as you save my master, not only will we immediately give you the Primeval stones you promised, we'll also give you the half of the golden core cultivation method. All right. Dao Hong thought for a moment, then clenched his teeth and said, I'll do it now. However, what we discussed before was the arrangement of General Mo at the Qianyu Mountain. I'm afraid he's not here now. There's no need for you to attract the attention of the soldiers around the Qianyu Mountain, because this will only make them more vigilant. Why don't you all follow me into the Qianyu Mountain and see who can find Master Zhu first? Although your Zhu clan has declined, you still have the foundation of an aristocratic family. I don't think you'll care about these soldiers, right? This. Young Master Zhu bit his lip, not knowing how to answer. He looked at Senior Xian for help. Senior Xian glanced at Dao Hong, then at the dozens of men surrounding him, and even the hundreds of people in the distance who couldn't be seen clearly. He nodded and said, all right, in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that General Mo might discover our whereabouts before we enter the Qianyu Mountain, we would have attacked long ago. Now that General Mo might not be at the Qianyu Mountain, we naturally have nothing to fear. All right, we'll do as fellow immortal says. We'll do it now. Dao Hong said as he took out a yellow talisman from his small Chenkuan pouch. Young Master Zhu nodded and said, yes, Senior, please use your divine ability. We'll be there soon. Young Master Zhu said. Dao Hong channeled his mana and a faint light flashed. Dao Hong placed the yellow talisman on his body. As the light flashed, Dao Hong's figure gradually disappeared. After a moment, Dao Hong's voice came from a few feet away, I'll be leaving first. You can come over as well. Elder Xian. Young Master Zhu bit his lip. The paleness of his face could be seen clearly in the night. He looked at the elder and said, since we have already made an agreement with Senior Dao Hong, then we must keep our promise. Elder, please arrange for people to follow the third method we discussed earlier, young master. Elder Xian revealed a benevolent smile and patted young Master Zhu's shoulder. He said meaningfully, young master took the risk to go to Bronze Pillar Country and met with fellow immortal Dao Hong at Star Picking Tower's auction. After that, young master took the risk to enter the capital of Bronze Pillar Country and asked fellow immortal Dao Hong to come out and help. These two great achievements were not something that could be accomplished by others. Now that we have to go deep into the Qianyu Mountain to rescue Old Master, as the one who planned this, there's no need for young master to personally attend to everything. You can stay here to support us and at the same time provide support. If there are any abnormalities, young master can inform us in time. Elder Xian. Young Master Zhu frowned. Our agreement with Senior Dao Hong was, hey, "Young master, we do have an agreement with fellow Daoist Hong, but who do you think you are? Our Zhu clan's bloodline is thin to begin with. Young master is the direct descendant of the old master. How can he take risks so easily? In particular, this formation requires a person with keen vision. Even though my Zhu clan has over 600 elites, how could they compare to young master's vision?" Old Xian continued to smile and calmly said, "If young master wasn't here, let alone this old servant, even fellow Dao Hong wouldn't feel at ease, right?" This. Young master Zhu felt that old master Xian's words made sense and fell silent. In addition, didn't young master promise to grant fellow Daoist Hong the golden core cultivation method? If young master also went to the Jade Mountain and fellow Daoist Hong rescued the old master, who would he ask for the cultivation method? Old Xian struck while the iron was hot and advised, "Therefore, for young master's promise, young master can't go personally." "Oh, Elder Xian is right." Young master Zhu nodded. "Then I'll stay here and watch over Elder Xian. If I discover anything unusual, I'll immediately inform Elder Xian." "Good. The safety of this old servant and the others will all depend on young master." How could Elder Xian not know that this departure could very well mean that they would be separated by life and death? He looked deeply at young master Zhu, then turned his head and said, "Zhu Jieyun, take 2 family guards and help young master guard the rear." "Elder Xian." The family guard called Zhu Jieyun said anxiously, "I want. What you want is not important. Our rear is the most important. You must help young master and let this old man have no worries." Elder Xian shouted angrily. Zhu Jieyun clenched his teeth and nodded. "Yes, I understand. Let's go." Elder Xian growled and activated his true qi. Faint clouds appeared beneath his feet and carried Elder Xian's somewhat stooped figure as he slowly flew into the distant night. When Elder Xian moved, the family guards around him moved as well. The guards waved their hands and passed down the order. In a short while, hundreds of people flew into the air. Some of them even used lightness techniques and pounced toward the black monster-like Chenyu Mountain in the distance. "Jieyun, do you think Elder Xian and the others will be fine?" Young master Zhu was clearly worried. Seeing that the distance had already returned to peace, with only the night, the wind, and the occasional beast roar, he was truly absent-minded as he asked in a low voice. "Don't worry, young master." Zhu Jieyun was indeed somewhat unwilling, but he suppressed the hot blood in his heart and said in a low voice, "Elder Xian and young master have thoroughly studied Chenyu Mountain. Everyone has also discussed this large-scale invasion many times. There definitely won't be any mistakes. Moreover, young master has even invited a Daoist expert. Old master will definitely be rescued. But I still feel uneasy." Young master Zhu was on the verge of tears. There are suddenly so many tents in Chenyu Mountain. Why did they strengthen the defense? Then, that damned Daoist cultivator from Black Cloud Ridge, why didn't they wait a few more days to kill the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State? When Elder Xian rescues father, he can do whatever he wants. He won't block our way like this. What could Zhu Jieyun say? He smiled apologetically. "I heard from Qingyu that young master met a Daoist expert outside the Bronze Pillar State. It would be great if young master could chat with him more." Sigh. Young master Zhu sighed. His eyes were somewhat lost. That person is like a dragon or phoenix among men. When he looks around, it seems like the entire world is in his control. How could I possibly be acquainted with him? Now that I think about it. Ah! Just as young master Zhu was reminiscing, a blood-curdling scream suddenly sounded from afar. Although it was several miles away, it traveled extremely far in this cold and silent night. Young master Zhu didn't care at first. After all, Chenyu Mountain wouldn't be called Chenyu Mountain if it didn't hear screams. However, when he saw thousands of torches light up within several miles, and hundreds of flickering lanterns floating in the air, how could he not know that something had gone wrong? His body couldn't help but tremble. Unfortunately, before he could use the eye-clearing technique to look into the distance, the sound of immortals slaying crossbows and god-slaying bows piercing through the air could be heard. One after another, blood-curdling screams could be heard as the torches flashed. Oh no! Young master Zhu turned pale with fright. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he looked into the distance. Senior Xian's shock was even greater than young Master Zhu's. He floated in front of the crowd and saw that there were twice as many tents as he had imagined. One after another, they blocked the path to the front of the Jade Mountain. However, at this point, where was there any way out? He could only hold his breath and concentrate on minimizing the commotion. He also believed that the Zhu family elites he brought with him were definitely stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the Copper Pillar State. They would definitely be able to reach the front of Chen Yushan without making a sound. Of course, he didn't have much confidence in dealing with the Nightmare Mo army that was defending Chenyu Mountain. Moreover, he didn't plan to have much confidence. His people were originally Dao Hong's cover. As long as they could attract the attention of the Nightmare Mo army and allow Dao Hong to rescue his master, the death of several hundred people was nothing. Unfortunately, Elder Xian was still too optimistic. He had just carefully passed through a few alliances when there was a commotion behind him. Enemy attack, enemy attack. A loud bugle horn sounded from the left. Then, the lit bonfires appeared one after another. From the tents, groups of soldiers wearing black armor rushed out with weapons in their hands. In just a moment, the entire camp was filled with soldiers in formation. Elder Xian almost rubbed his eyes. These soldiers seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, these soldiers' armor was pitch black and carried a thick blood shadow. An indescribable murderous aura was emitted from the formation. Heavens! Elder Xian almost groaned. Isn't this the black-armored army? How did they move from the front lines to Chenyu Mountain? Could it be Chenyu Mountain? Suddenly, Elder Xian had an ominous feeling. It was as if today was definitely not the best day to rescue his master. Elder Xian's ominous feeling was still too optimistic. After the Black Armor army formed a formation, they didn't wave their weapons to block their path and fight with them as old Xian had expected. Instead, they threw the spears in their hands and formed groups of several people. The person in the middle raised his hand and flashed with a faint clear light. Similarly, an immortal extermination crossbow appeared above their heads. Without waiting for old Xian and the others to react, arrows carrying a dense immortal extermination aura whistled through the air and flew toward them. -12. Chapter 3553. The immortal slaying crossbow used by the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar State was a sharp weapon used by Confucian cultivators against the Taoist sect. Even the well-trained Taoist soldiers of the Taoist sect would not be able to withstand it, let alone the family generals of the Confucian aristocratic families. Once they came into contact with the crossbow, from the initial scream, the heart-wrenching howls could be heard incessantly. The family generals of the Zhu family really did not want to scream, but the immortal slaying crossbow was too overbearing. When the arrow flew past, it definitely pierced through their bodies and came out of their backs with flesh and blood. The absolute pain was truly heart-wrenching. They had no choice but to open their mouths. Boom! Elder Xian was stunned, but he felt a gust of wind roaring in front of him. He hurriedly looked up and saw a black shadow with hundreds of inscriptions in it. They seemed to be chasing after his life. As it roared, it had already rushed in front of his face. Elder Xian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of genuine qi. Several streams of noble qi blasted down at the same time. It was like a giant hand blocking in front of him, barely pulling the arrow away. Whoosh! With a soft sound, the immortal slaying crossbow flew past Elder Xian's ear, and a few strands of his white hair fell to the ground. How can they rush into the Jade Mountain? Elder Xian had already weighed the pros and cons in a moment. He knew that it was impossible to rush through the alliance in this situation, so he hurriedly ordered a retreat. However, the urgency of the situation was far beyond his imagination. Clang! A golden sound came from about 100 feet below him. The sound was so resounding and so frightening. A gust of wind appeared out of nowhere. Elder Xian's noble qi was instantly sucked out of his body. A kind of coldness and an ice demon pounced from under his feet like a ferocious beast. God-slaying bow. Elder Xian's heart immediately turned cold. He had long heard of the weapon used by the Bronze Pillar State to deal with the Taoist generals of the Taoist sect, but he had never thought that one day he would face it alone. Elder Xian's genuine chi was forced to solidify by the god-slaying bow's ferociousness. He felt his bones and tendons go numb, and an irresistible fear rose in his heart. Before he could wave his weapon or take out his scroll and other things, a cold light flashed in the night sky. A 3-meter-long arrow pierced Elder Xian's heart with lightning speed. Elder Xian's body was like a doll. He was sent flying dozens of feet before he landed in an arc in the distance. Boom! The sound came from being nailed to an ancient tree. The ancient tree trembled, and many leaves fell. The old and hunched figure curled up into a ball, and blood flowed out of his mouth like a fountain. He lifted his grayish-white eyes with great difficulty to look in young Master Zhu's direction. Then, he immediately closed his eyes, and his entire body was nailed to the ancient tree. Roar! Roar! In the distance, Elder Xian faced dozens of black armor soldiers who were shouting slogans. Their genuine chi was activated as they worked together to control a crossbow that was dozens of feet long. The crossbow was pitch black, and the thousands of inscriptions on it flashed blood red. It flowed even more violently than the blood on Elder Xian's chest. Boom! 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 A total of 3 similar god-slaying bows roared from the rocks near Chenyu Mountain. 3 arrows as thick as a child's arm shot into the air. A faint light flashed, and strings of blood splattered. Dao Hong covered his left shoulder and revealed himself in the air. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. He could not believe that his invisibility talisman had been seen through by the Confucian cultivator, Daoist remnant. Behind him, at the edge of the camp, a burly general dressed in battle armor and riding a pitch-black steed appeared. The general roared, "I've been waiting for you here for a long time, my sons. Kill. General. General Hao Hu. How? How is this possible?" Dao Hong seemed to be very familiar with the generals of the Bronze Pillar country. He almost blurted it out. He really did not expect that General Hao Hu, one of the 3 great generals of the Bronze Pillar country, would personally come to Chenyu Mountain to guard it. A sense of dizziness, as if he had fallen into an abyss, instantly arose from the bottom of Dao Hong's heart. However, the difficulty of the situation was beyond Dao Hong's expectations. Clang, clang, clang. At the same time, the sound of the god-slaying bows rang out behind him, where Chenyu Mountain was surrounded by black water. In an instant, goosebumps appeared all over Dao Hong's body. Almost without hesitation, he slapped his hand on the top of his head and a bronze ring flew out. The ring buzzed as it flew out. Rays of bronze luster appeared from the ring and covered Dao Hong's body in the air. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as the luster fell, 3 arrows rushed to Dao Hong's side. In the loud roar, thousands of inscriptions appeared between the arrows and the ring. The bronze luster turned into fist-sized bubbles, which then burst like ants. Wisps of noble spirit, sharper than knives, pierced into the luster and tore it into pieces. Then, the 3 flying arrows rushed into the ring. Fortunately, after being blocked by Dao Hong's magical weapon, the 3 flying arrows had lost a lot of their strength. Dao Hong was still agile and managed to dodge the god-slaying bows in a flash. Having narrowly escaped death, Dao Hong no longer dared to fly in the air. His body descended rapidly like a falling meteor. Before his body could land on the ground, boom, boom. Several beams of light shot out from the halo and struck 4 to 5 soldiers who were activating the immortal extermination crossbows. How could these soldiers be a match for Dao Hong? In an instant, they were turned into minced meat and scattered all over the ground. Damn it! Seeing that Dao Hong had killed several black-armored soldiers and was about to enter the camp, General Hao Hu was enraged. With a furious roar, he leapt up from his black horse. Stepping on a cloud, he charged towards Dao Hong like a ferocious tiger. While General Hao Hu was still in the air, his fists and legs were already dancing. Wisps of noble spirit fell and the wind from his fists whistled. The soldiers who couldn't dodge in time were blown into the air. The tents beside the soldiers were instantly torn into pieces. Before Dao Hong could hide into the crowd, he hastily formed an incantation gesture. Amidst the vibrating sound of the bronze brilliance, a huge shadow flew out and charged towards General Hao Hu. It collided with the wind generated by General Hao Hu's fist. Boom! A powerful force spread in all directions. The soldiers several dozen feet to the left were sent flying. The immortal execution crossbows that had just been set up were also scattered by the impact. Woo, woo! While Dao Hong was still rolling in the air, 2 more god-slaying bows came at him. Dao Hong knew that his protective golden light couldn't block the god-slaying bows. As he lost his balance, he immediately broke the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of essence blood on the bronze bracelet. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The bronze bracelet's luster soared into the sky like a waterfall. While protecting Dao Hong, it blocked the 2 flying arrows. Chempage! General Hao Hu, who was in the air, let out a cold snort. His feet swept across the air. His palms shook slightly as though he was drawing an inscription in front of his chest. A gust of noble spirit wind rose again. A tiger-shaped shadow actually rushed out from the gust of wind and rushed toward Dao Hong with a roar. Condensed qi into form? Looking at this tiger-shaped shadow, Dao Hong's heart sank to the bottom. He knew that General Hao Hu had probably reached the pinnacle of the 3rd grade of essence force, or even the 4th grade. He wasn't someone that he could withstand. Woo, 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 woo. Just as Dao Hong's heart was trembling, 8 god-slaying bows sounded at the same time. The black armored army had unknowingly formed a formation around Dao Hong. The murderous flying arrows flickered with a chilling light that was darker than the dark night. They flew toward Dao Hong from all directions. Seeing this, Dao Hong's expression changed greatly. He suddenly soared into the sky. However, the god-slaying bows were too fast. He had only moved a few feet when the flying arrows had already reached him. Explode! Dao Hong clenched his teeth and suddenly formed a seal. The bronze bracelet's luster was abnormally bright. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Air currents gushed out like a fountain in all directions. The 8 god-slaying bows were actually blocked by Dao Hong. Unfortunately, just as Dao Hong was about to explode his treasures, General Hao Hu's tiger-shaped flying shadow had already arrived above his head. Although there was no stench coming from the mouth of the tiger, there was an aura of extermination. Dao Hong could no longer dodge. Puff! Dao Hong's face turned ferocious. He opened his mouth and a golden core that was smaller than a thumb rushed out. Woo! A violent wind blew and the golden core suddenly expanded. Dao Hong actually wanted to explode his golden core and perish together with General Hao Hu. Chempage! Boring. General Hao Hu sneered. The tiger-shaped flying shadow opened its mouth and swallowed the golden core. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The golden core exploded and the tiger-shaped flying shadow exploded into pieces. Even General Hao Hu's body was thrown back half a foot, not to mention the deep pit that was several feet in size on the ground below him. Ah! After the rumbling, a blood-curdling scream was heard. 2 god-slaying bows shot out from the darkness like sickles. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but one of the bows pierced into Dao Hong's left cheek and the other into his heart. Dao Hong, who had already used up all of his tricks, was killed by the black armored army before he could put up any resistance. Dao Hong was already a cultivator in the middle stage of the gold core realm. He could be considered a Daoist expert. If he were to fight General Hao Hu alone, he would have no chance of winning. However, it was not impossible for him to escape. However, after he was injured by the god-slaying bows, he lost all his courage. He did not dare to challenge General Hao Hu and could only escape. Unfortunately, the god-slaying bows and the immortal-slaying crossbows were targeted at Daoist disciples. Regardless of speed or force, they could break through Daoist spells. Under such circumstances, how could Dao Hong possibly escape? Senior Xian. In the distant night, young Master Zhu heard the continuous screams. Although he could not see much with the art of clear eyes, how could he not know the miserable situation of the others when he heard the sounds of the immortal-slaying crossbows and the god-slaying bows? He groaned and tears fell from his eyes. He knew more clearly than ever that Senior Xian's painstaking efforts were as heavy as a mountain. If it was not for Senior Xian's obstruction, he would have been killed by the bows and arrows. -12. Chapter 3554. Nianyun, quick, issue the order to retreat. Young Master Zhu cried out without hesitation as tears rolled down his cheeks. Young Master, leave quickly. Zhu Nianyun was even more decisive. She pulled young Master Zhu's arm and lifted him up, preparing to escape. No. Young Master Zhu roared and struggled, issue the order quickly. They are the last elites of my Zhu clan. Where's the order to retreat? Zhu Nianyun roared even louder and told the truth. Young Master, we can only advance tonight. There is no retreat. This. Young Master Zhu was in a daze. After a moment, realization dawned in his eyes. What Senior Xian told him was something that was covered up. At this moment, a wave of spiritual force swept over. Then, a faint voice rang in the ears of Zhu Nianyun and the others. Oh? I was wondering who it was. So it's young Master Zhu Xiong from the Zhu clan. You guys really don't give up. Since you're here, you've saved me the trouble of. Unfortunately, before General Hao Hu could finish his words, an even more powerful spiritual force rushed over, shattering the wave of spiritual force into pieces. An ethereal voice rang throughout the mountain range. Eh? Why is the Jade Mountain so lively? Is it welcoming me? In the distant horizon, a ball of light that was brighter than the crescent moon flew over like a meteor. A Pegasus that looked incomparably holy flashed its wings of light and pulled a flying chariot into everyone's field of vision. In the light, a tall and thin cultivator in a daoist robe fluttered in the wind. His hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a flying immortal. Generals, listen up. General Hao Hu saw this and knew that Xiao Hua had come. He didn't care about the Zhu clan's generals who had been killed by the Black Armor army. He waved his hand and activated his true energy. His voice shook the surroundings. Yes. Thousands of Black Armor soldiers responded in unison. They abandoned the Zhu family's generals, reorganized their formation, and activated their genuine qi. Regardless of whether it was the immortal slaying crossbows or the god-slaying bows, all of them flashed with clear light. Countless noble qi fell with a loud bang, and billions of inscriptions flowed in the noble qi. Senior, leave quickly. Zhu Xiong shouted without hesitation. This is the Godslayer bow specially made by the militarists of the Bronze Pillar Nation to counter daoist spells. As far as Zhu Xiong could remember, there was no daoist cultivator who could escape from the God-slaying bow. Ha ha ha. It's just a small trick. Xiao Hua raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter caused the broken leaves in the forest to fly up. Amidst his laughter, Xiao Hua landed on the flying car. Then, he heard the rumbling sound of rolling thunder. Under Zhu Xiong's dumbstruck gaze, this otherworldly flying immortal stepped on heavenly thunder and arrived. Fire. As expected, General Hao Hu was a veteran of the battlefield. His face was as calm as a mountain rock. Seeing Xiao Hua land in midair, he waved his hand and gave the order. Whoosh whoosh, clang clang, woo woo, the sounds of bows and arrows rang out incessantly. Not a single murderous movement resounded in the pitch-black night. Rumble. The lone daoist Xiao waved his hand. Thousands of heavenly thunders were born from the void. Each of them was more violent than a horned dragon as they charged towards the god-slaying bow and immortal-slaying crossbow. Bang bang bang. Even more intense explosions soared into the sky from the heavenly thunders. Even if it was the immortal-slaying crossbow, the god-slaying bow, and the thousands of black-armored army, in front of Xiao Hua, who was at the 5th stage of origin energy, it was truly child's play. Killing people was even more so in the blink of an eye. Not a single arrow could break through the net of thunder. Not a single trace of killing intent could escape from the lightning. All of you, move to the side. Xiao Hua smiled coldly. He slapped his hand on the top of his head. Boom. Under the moonlight, golden light flashed. A nascent soul hand of several acres in size appeared out of thin air, grabbing towards the army camp below. General Hao Hu's face was ashen. He had already heard Northern Guo Institute chief's description. He had already thought that Xiao Hua's strength was extraordinary. However, he still didn't truly estimate Xiao Hua's strength. He still threw Northern Guo Institute chief's warning aside. He really didn't have the strength to stop Xiao Hua. However, since it had already come to this, there was no reason to retreat. General Hao Hu roared, "Kill!" The wind from the fist moved again. A tiger-shaped pillar of vast chi once again charged towards the gigantic palm that was descending from the sky. Boom! The pillar of vast chi rumbled and blasted a hole in the giant palm. The tiger-shaped flying shadow also disappeared, but the hand of the nascent soul was not stopped. In the barracks where thousands of black-armored soldiers were resting, hundreds of immortal execution crossbows and god-slaying bows were destroyed by Xiao Hua as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. When the giant hand grabbed the entire barracks disappeared, as if the black-armored soldiers were stripped naked of their armor. Seeing the gigantic golden hand turn in midair, the golden light disappeared. The entire army camp's military supplies also disappeared. General Hao Hu roared loudly. His body expanded by 2 zhong. The long spear in his hand whistled as it pounced towards Xiao Hua, who was standing in midair with a smile, even more ferocious than the huge python. "You little brat! Why are you arguing with this old man?" Xiao Hua began to show off. Even Leng Qingge wasn't this old man's opponent. "Who do you think you are? If I took your life, it would make this old man seem ungentlemanly. If I don't take your life, why are you so noisy? Fine, 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 let's see if you can take this old man's staff." As he spoke, Xiao Hua grabbed in midair and the wishful steel staff appeared. "Grow, grow, grow!" Xiao Hua shouted a few times. The wishful steel staff grew to 2 zhong. Xiao Hua only needed to slightly wave it, and the wishful steel staff smashed down like a mountain. Woo! Just the deafening whistling sound made General Hao Hu's body stagnate. Pa! The wishful steel staff accurately hit the python's head. With a loud bang, the long spear fell from General Hao Hu's hand as if it was struck by lightning. The entire long spear was smashed into 2 pieces. Kill! General Hao Hu's arms were numb, but his fighting spirit didn't decrease. With a roar, the tiger-shaped shadow appeared in his fists again. The vast chi rushed out again. Who knew that Xiao Hua didn't dodge at all, nor did he use any magic power to cast any Dao arts. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly turned illusory. Like a gust of wind, he floated in front of General Hao Hu in the blink of an eye. With a wave of his right arm, he clenched his right fist and smashed it into the mouth of the tiger-shaped shadow. Boom! With a clear sound, the tiger-shaped shadow shattered. The vast chi also scattered in all directions. Xiao Hua's fist impressively appeared in front of General Hao Hu's chest. General Hao Hu looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. He absolutely didn't dare to believe that a Dao sect cultivator's punches and kicks were more powerful than him, a martial grand master from the school of the military. Looking at the black armor in front of his chest that had been tempered thousands of times by Xiao Hua's fist, General Hao Hu spat out a mouthful of black blood and his entire body fell from midair, plop. Smoke and dust flew in all directions as General Hao Hu fell to the ground. He struggled a few times but couldn't get up. However, under the shattered black armor, his violently heaving chest showed that Xiao Hua didn't have any intention of taking his life. "All of you, step down." Xiao Hua waved his hand, looked around, and said indifferently, "You all are not my match. I know that you all have military orders, so I won't take your lives. Your opponents are my Jiang country's Dao soldiers. If anyone dares to take half a step forward, I will definitely kill them." The thousands of black-armored armies killing intent disappeared. They looked at Xiao Hua blankly and didn't know what to do. The 100 or so people closest to General Hao Hu unconsciously looked at him. "You! All of you, listen to my orders." General Hao Hu stood up from the ground with difficulty. His face was pale as he looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in midair with a golden light flashing around his body. He knew that this was Xiao Hua's benevolence, and if he gave the order, it would only increase the casualties. Thus, he raised his hand and said, "Discard your weapons and sit on the ground." "Yes." The soldiers felt relieved as they placed their weapons on the ground and sat down obediently. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, no longer paying attention to General Hao Hu. Auspicious clouds appeared beneath his feet, carrying Xiao Hua towards the Jade Mountain. Creak, creak. Xiao Hua had only flown a few meters when he heard a rough sound coming from the Jade Mountain in front of him. Then, the entire top of the Jade Mountain, as well as the entrance of the Jade Mountain, suddenly shone brightly. On the stone wall, an unknown stone gave off a brilliance that seemed to be made of Minghua stone, illuminating everything in front of Xiao Hua. Following the creaking sound, a chain bridge slowly extended out from the cave. On top of the chain bridge, there were two old men who were over 70 years old. The two of them were dressed in simple clothes, and their faces were clear and arrogant. Seeing that, Xiao Hua did not fly forward. He simply descended from the sky and stood at the edge of the stone cliff, watching indifferently. I didn't expect Daoist Master Xiao to be so magnanimous. No wonder Beiguo Zhenming praised him so much. Without waiting for the chain bridge to reach into the cliff, the old man in front cupped his hands and bowed, and said, "Since that's the case, this old man can't hide behind the chain bridge and do any dirty tricks. This old man is the Prime Minister of the Copper Pillar country, Yang Jin." "Prime Minister?" Xiao Hua frowned, raised his hand to return the greeting, and said indifferently, "This old man heard that as long as the state teacher is killed, all grudges will be decided on the battlefield. What's the matter with your Copper Pillar country? This old man killed a state teacher, why did a general and a prime minister come out? Could it be that you want to force this old man to make a move against your Copper Pillar country? Bastard!" Yang Jin did not speak, but the old man behind him scolded, "Easily exterminating a country, quietly killing people, the entire hidden immortal continent is in a mess because of your Daoist sect. Since you want to establish a country, then establish a country. Why do you need to take the imperial jade seal of our Confucian cultivators? Quickly hand over the imperial jade seal, seeing that you still have mercy in your heart, this old man can spare your life." "Good. You really scared this old man to death." Xiao Hua laughed. "Who are you, old man?" "This old man is Jean Rouchure," the old man said word by word, his face full of arrogance. "Oh!" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows. He did not know who this old man was, but in the distance, young Master Zhu, who wanted to leave but did not dare to, had already used the clear eyes technique to see clearly. He said in a low voice, "Copper Pillar country. Why did you invite this old man here? Daoist Xiao. I'm afraid you're in trouble." -12. Chapter 3555. Yang Jin opened his mouth again. "Daoist Xiao, if you had only killed Lung Chinga, I would not have caused you any more trouble. Everything could have been settled on the battlefield. However, not only did you barge into my territory, you also took the 5-dragon imperial jade seal. Naturally, we cannot just settle this with you on the battlefield. Jean Rouchure, Old Master Jean Rouchure, is a renowned great-grandmaster among us Confucian cultivators. His simple and honest reputation is revered by all. He has heard of your atrocities and has specially come to Qianyu Mountain to help this old man retrieve the imperial jade seal. If you take out the imperial jade seal, Qianyu Mountain will retreat and everything will be fine. We will decide who is superior and inferior on the battlefield." "Imperial jade seal?" Xiao Hua was stunned and looked at Yang Jin in confusion. He had already given the 5-dragon imperial jade seal to Do Shan-jun. However, who was Do Shan-jun? Although he hid his Daoist identity in the Copper Pillar Academy, how would Xiao Hua know who he was going to give the imperial jade seal to? From Yang Jin's words, even if Do Shan-jun gave the imperial jade seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, the Copper Pillar Academy might not announce it. With the 5-dragon imperial jade seal as bait, many Confucian cultivators would come to help the Copper Pillar Academy. How could the Copper Pillar Academy reject such a good deal? Haha, as the saying goes, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Xiao Hua laughed. "I have already given the imperial jade seal to the governor of the Imperial Academy to bring back to the Copper Pillar Academy. If you want it, you can go find him." Of course, I can imagine, even if the governor gave the imperial jade seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, Prime Minister Yang might not admit it. "Oh, the governor of the Copper Pillar Academy, Do Shan-jun?" Yang Jin frowned slightly and glanced at Jean Rouchure beside him. He shook his head and said, "I only know of this person and am not familiar with him. Furthermore, I have never heard of the Imperial Academy returning the imperial jade seal to the palace." "Haha, rascal, what's the point of saying such baseless things now? Jean Roucheré laughed and pointed at Xiao Hua. Even if you really returned the Imperial Jade Seal, what are you doing now? This is the prison of the Bronze Pillar country. You keep saying that you want to use your Dao soldiers against the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar country. Why are you using your martial arts to break the law? My hidden immortal continent is governed by Confucian cultivators, unlike your Dao sect's lax rule. This old man is not talented, but I am willing to face the tyranny of your Dao sect as an ordinary Confucian cultivator, and return the public courtesy of our Confucian cultivator. Although chivalrous men use martial arts to violate the laws of Confucianism, aren't they also using literature to violate the laws? Xiao Hua sneered. You keep talking about laws and etiquette, yet you're only a tiny Confucian cultivator. What qualifications do you have to represent the hidden immortal continent? You are only qualified to represent yourself. You're just trying to find a reason for your actions. Since that's the case, let's fight. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua's body flashed with golden light. There was some anger in his eyes. He swept his gaze over Yang Zijin and Jean Roucheré and said, facing the 5 brocade cloud paintings, "This old man is not afraid, let alone you two old men. Mitch, you really think too highly of yourself. How can we join hands to fight against the enemy?" Yang Zijin snorted coldly and took a few steps back. He raised his voice and said, "We'll be relying on old Master Jean for this battle. Teaching the younger generation a lesson, this old man won't fall behind." Jean Roucheré laughed loudly and also took a few steps forward. His gaze was like lightning as he looked at Xiao Hua. His previous old appearance was swept away. "Old master." Xiao Hua looked at Jean Roucheré's somewhat trembling appearance and sneered. "If we're talking, this Xiao may not be your opponent. But if we fight, this Xiao advises you to retreat. You haven't even cultivated true qi, how can you be this Xiao's opponent?" Who would have thought that Jean Roucheré's eyes slanted at Xiao Hua and said indifferently, "Who said that one must cultivate true qi to kill the enemy? Have you never heard that if one has talent, a poem can kill the enemy, a painting can also kill the monarch? A scholar can pacify the world with an essay? Never heard of it." Xiao Hua smiled faintly. But suddenly, Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He suddenly remembered what Fu Jiwen said at the auction at Zhai Xinglu. He couldn't help but size up the seemingly arrogant Jean Roucheré. "Good, today this old man will let you see what it means to be a great scholar, to criticize in speech and in writing, to set the world in writing, to be a scholar in his 70s, to have a sharp tongue and to correct the laws of the court." Jean Roucheré roared and opened his mouth. He shouted, "The awe-inspiring qi, the spirit of man, the style of writing for 10,000 years, listen to my command, fight, fight, fight." Following Jean Roucheré's 3 roars, the entire Jade Mountain immediately surged with wind and clouds. Not only did the awe-inspiring qi within several miles surge over like a tidal wave, even the silent awe-inspiring qi in the void seemed to listen to Jean Roucheré's command, tearing through the void and rushing in. It was to the extent that when the righteous qi was mobilized, a chilling intent was born from the heavens and the earth. Sounds like war drums and bugles were heard from the left and right. In an instant, Xiao Hua had the illusion that he was being attacked by an army of thousands of men and horses. Xiao Hua was a little startled. He had fought against more than 1 or 2 Confucian cultivators, but he had never encountered such a strange phenomenon. However, the development of the situation was beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. The awe-inspiring qi was far from simple. Following the sound of the bugles, there was the sound of the drums. On the entire Jade Mountain, countless awe-inspiring qi seemed to have a spirit and rushed toward Xiao Hua like thousands of soldiers and horses. The awe-inspiring qi's sharpness actually cut through the void, producing a shrill sound. This was different from Lung Chinga's golden spear. There was no specific image, only an ancient killing intent. This killing intent was so bleak that, not to mention the falling leaves within several miles, even Xiao Hua felt a burst of coldness. Boom, boom, boom. Not only that, but above Xiao Hua's head, there were hundreds of awe-inspiring qi pillars that pierced through the sky and directly fell toward Xiao Hua. The solemn killing intent enveloped Xiao Hua within 100 feet. "It's hard to imagine." Xiao Hua sighed. This world is really too mysterious. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, how could I have imagined that the seemingly defenseless old Confucian cultivator would actually have the power to command thousands of soldiers and horses? Kill. Xiao Hua slapped the top of his head with the back of his hand. The Yuanying's hand was displayed, and it turned into a palm the size of an acre and grabbed toward the sky. Boom, boom, boom. With a series of explosions, the huge palm grabbed the awe-inspiring Qi pillars and shattered them. However, the huge palm was also defeated. The entire Jade Mountain was set off by a hurricane. Sand and stones flew everywhere. Not only were the huge trees uprooted, even the black armored army who were sitting quietly were unable to maintain their sitting posture. One by one, they were blown into the air. Some crashed into trees, some crashed into rocks, and many more died. Retreat, retreat. General Hao Hu struggled to stabilize his body. Seeing the loss of his soldiers, he felt heartache. He shouted loudly and commanded the soldiers to retreat. After breaking the awe-inspiring Qi pillars, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be careless. After all, the awe-inspiring Qi that surged towards him seemed to be able to suffocate people. He hurriedly slapped his hand again, and the seal of overturning the sea roared and flew out of the space. Under the urging of his magic power, it directly charged into the thousands of soldiers and horses. Woo! At the beginning, the seal of overturning the sea was still like a whirlwind, rushing through a huge gap. However, after only advancing a few zhong, it seemed to have encountered a huge obstacle. Even though the seal of overturning the sea flashed with intense brilliance, it still couldn't advance even half a foot. Oh! This is somewhat interesting. Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. He looked at the arrogant-looking old master Zhon Rushui in the distance. Both of his hands moved, and rays of brilliance entered the void. However, in a moment, thousands of golden rays of light appeared near Zhon Rushui. These rays of light flashed around Zhon Rushui's body, like countless small snakes approaching Zhon Rushui. However, after a moment, those rays of light didn't fall even half an inch. It was as if Zhon Rushui's body was surrounded by the defense of the 5 elements, blocking Xiao Hua's magic technique outside. Hey! Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. His face revealed an inconceivable expression. Immediately after, he rubbed his hands again. Those thousands of golden rays of light flourished and advanced a few more inches. Unfortunately, these golden rays of light only surrounded Zhon Rushui and were unable to bind him. You want to go against the will of my hidden immortal continent's eternal scholar? Your cultivation is still a bit shallow. Zhon Rushui laughed loudly. Your Daoist technique is inferior to the silk thread in the hands of this old man's embroiderer. Break. However, after hearing Zhon Rushui's soft rebuke, another wave of dense killing intent burst out from his body. Xiao Hua's fingers trembled from the shock. The thousands of golden rays of light turned into nothingness. That noble Qi even condensed into a sword array and pierced towards Xiao Hua. Old ignorant man. Xiao Hua was slightly angry. However, in his heart, he truly somewhat admired old Master Zhon's method. Previously, on the way to Jade Mountain, he had already talked with Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei about the effects of Confucian cultivation scrolls. He himself also read scrolls incessantly. After Xiao Hua cursed, he waved his hand and the seal of turning the sea returned to his space. Soon after, he coldly glanced at the somewhat arrogant Zhon Rushui and waved his hand again. A golden ray of light soared into the sky. A pair of scissors like a flood dragon streaked across the sky. That dragon's tail swayed, and the noble Qi that was like a magnificent army with thousands of men and horses was cut in half. The sword array was also disrupted. That golden ray of light didn't stop. Like a waterfall, it chopped towards Zhon Rushui's waist. Yang Zhijin, who was watching from afar, was extremely shocked. He finally understood why Leng Qingge and the others were defeated by Xiao Hua. Who was Zhon Rushui? He was a famous Confucian scholar in the hidden immortal continent. He was truly an expert with a sharp tongue. One word could kill 1,000 soldiers, one word could kill 10,000 horses. He was currently the strongest person Tong Zhuguo could ask for. Although this old master didn't practice Confucian cultivation techniques, this old master was brimming with talent. His strength was comparable to the top of the 5th level. In front of this kind of expert, Xiao Hua actually didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. After several fights, he still had a backup plan. How could Tong Zhuguo be his opponent? Seeing that the golden ray of light was like a waterfall, cutting off the noble qi and rushing towards Jean Roucheret's waist, Yang Zijin was greatly shocked. He couldn't help but shout, "Old master, be careful." At the same time, auspicious clouds also appeared under Yang Zijin's feet. His eyes flashed with absolute determination. -12. Chapter 3556. Chen-ph, Child's Play. Jean Roucheret snorted coldly, but the awe-inspiring aura several feet around him immediately turned into a whirlwind, carrying Jean Roucheret's body skyward. He really had the power to soar 90,000 miles. The soaring dragon scissors instantly cut through the air, and at the same time, the whirlwind whistled. Unexpectedly, like Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand, it turned into a huge fist and smashed towards Xiao Hua. Hum! The space several dozen feet around Xiao Hua froze, as if thousands of years of students were waving their fists together to attack Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua furrowed his brows. The soaring dragon scissors, which were originally taking advantage of the situation, drew a few feet of golden light before stopping. Facing the 70-year-old Jean Roucheret, a weapon like the soaring dragon scissors was really too savage. Xiao Hua really couldn't bear it. Just now, he had only used 60% of his magic power and didn't dare to use the full power of the soaring dragon scissors. Xiao Hua raised his head to look at the fist in the sky and the awe-inspiring aura all around him. He patted his chest, and the 5 silk handkerchiefs of the 5 Qi righteous thunder rushed into the air. Once the silk handkerchiefs appeared, 5 colored clouds rose. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and 5 rays of sword energy fell on it. An immortal slaying platform slowly emerged from the clouds. Thunder is the command of the heavens. Once my thunder comes out, all will obey. Xiao Hua's voice was like spring thunder. He waved his hand, and the 5 Qi righteous thunder roared like 5 huge dragons winding down. Regardless of whether you're an ancient student or an ancient killing intent, under my sound of thunder, all will enter the cycle of reincarnation. Rumble. Under the 5 Qi righteous thunder, the awe-inspiring aura and ferocious killing intent were actually faster than boiling water falling on snow. They instantly turned into nothingness, or merged into the heavenly thunder, or hid in the void, and disappeared without a trace. Swish. The soaring dragon scissors from before flashed in the air and swept past Jean Roucheret. The belt around Jean Roucheret's waist immediately broke. Brat. Jean Roucheret turned pale with fright. How is this Daoist thunder controlling technique possible? Unfortunately, before he could say anything, Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand once again covered him. Pu. The big hand had already grabbed Jean Roucheret. Put me down. Yang Zijin, who was already flying, had just seen Jean Roucheret's escape. His heart relaxed. His figure originally stopped in the air, but when he saw Xiao Hua's attack, he was shocked and angry. He shouted, also wanted to use of the awe-inspiring aura. But the surrounding awe-inspiring aura's 5 Qi, how could it still listen to his command SSSSS, SSSS, S-Dragon S-Qi, SS-Qis SSSSS soul hand? This blue water was very fierce, and the sound of water splashing could be heard. The remaining stone walls were instantly corroded by the blue water. However, the nascent soul's hand was still shining brightly and wasn't corroded at all. Forget it. Yang Zijin sighed and waved her hand. She took out an inch-long white bone. This white bone was like a dagger, and there was a thumb-sized blood-red rune on it. This rune was very small and strange, so others couldn't see it clearly. Yang Zijin stabbed the white bone into her heart. Wang. There was a faint buzzing sound. The blood seeped into the white bone, and the entire white bone gave off a blood-red glow. The rune that went deep into the blood trembled. In the blink of an eye, the rune absorbed all the blood and the entire white bone entered Yang Zijin's body. Yang Zijin's face was bright red. He looked at Xiao Hua's big hand and urged the clouds under his feet. His eyes were like blood as he cried, "Xiao Hua, quickly let go of old Master Jean. Otherwise, This old man will not let you go even if I become a ghost. Chimpage. Xiao Hua sneered and waved his big hand in the air. If you want to be a ghost, then don't be a ghost. This old man also never wanted to take the life of a great scholar like old Master Zhang. He was only bewitched by you. Woo! Yang Zijin's body suddenly expanded. She rushed towards the nascent soul's hand and let out a mournful cry. Peng! With a loud sound, Yang Zijin's body exploded. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and a lot of blood fell on the nascent soul's hand. A bit boring. Xiao Hua frowned. He waved his hand and blocked the blood and flesh. He flew into the air and coldly said, "This old man said I won't take old Master Zhang's life. Why are you in such a hurry?" Before he finished speaking, the nascent soul's hand turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. Only when he was dozens of kilometers away did he release his hand. Jean Rouchiré was thrown to the ground in a sorry state by the nascent soul. Seeing the golden big hand suddenly withdraw like a god, Jean Rouchiré's face was disappointed and frustrated. He really didn't understand how Xiao Hua's Dao sect's thunder technique could defeat his noble spirit. However, he didn't have time to think about this. He stretched out his hand and tightened the belt around his waist to see if he could reattach the broken part. Xiao Hua withdrew his nascent soul's hand, and the soaring dragon shears hovered in the air for a moment before falling into his hand. At this moment, the night was even darker, but the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain were even more chaotic. Mountain rocks were scattered, trees were toppled, and many black armor soldiers were smashed into the stone walls by the Aaron Chi pillar and turned into meat paste. After the Aaron Chi dissipated, an unconcealable smell of blood gradually diffused. Xiao Hua sighed. He scooped up the 5 Chi thunder silk handkerchief into his dantian. It was still set up by the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua into the immortal slaying stage. Then, he looked at the silent Qianyu Mountain and said loudly, "Generals of Qianyu Mountain, this old man is here to save Jiang Country's state teacher Li Xiong. You can send him, and the disciples out. This old man doesn't want to kill again." However, after half a cup of tea's time, the silence was still the silence. The night was still the night. There was no change. "Chimpage. You really won't turn back until you hit the south wall?" Xiao Hua sneered. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense and said indifferently, "Since that's the case, don't blame this old man for being unreasonable." As he spoke, Xiao Hua's body turned into a rainbow. He didn't walk on the chain bridge and rushed towards the entrance of Qianyu Mountain. Buzz buzz. Just as Xiao Hua's figure crossed the cliff and had yet to fly over the mountain stream, suddenly, the bloody light around Xiao Hua's body flourished, covering the golden light in an instant. The mana around Xiao Hua's body stagnated, and his body fell into the black water of the mountain stream like a falling stone. "Old man." Xiao Hua was shocked. Looking at the bloody light floating around his body, he immediately understood the reason why Yang Zijin self-destructed in front of him. This was something he had planned long ago. Just as Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his nascent soul to transfer his true essence, he heard a strange sound in his ears. It was like a flood that overflowed the sky. At the same time, a burst of light and shadow appeared in front of his eyes. It was like the mountains were shaking. The scenery around Xiao Hua had completely changed. Qianyu Mountain was gone, the cliff was gone, and only a black sky and black earth remained. There was no starlight in the darkness, no moonlight, only an unpleasant stench. An illusion array? A moment later, Xiao Hua's mana returned to normal. He frowned and stopped. He was about to open his Dharma eye to take a look. Chirp! A bird-like sound entered Xiao Hua's ears. A strange rune flashed in the darkness in front of Xiao Hua. This rune was somewhat similar to the runes of the Dao sect that Xiao Hua cultivated, but it was completely different. As soon as this rune appeared, a kind of blazing heat was born from the rune. Even the rune itself appeared a kind of crimson color. Roar! Just as the bird-like rune appeared, another angry roar came from behind Xiao Hua. This time, the rune was different from before. It actually emitted a light green color, and this color carried a kind of desolate coldness. What is this? Xiao Hua's curiosity was greatly aroused. He simply withdrew his Dharma eye and golden light flashed around his body. He was more curious. At this time, what kind of defensive array could the copper pillar state have that was more powerful than the 5-brocade cloud painting? Chirp! The crimson rune chirped again and suddenly expanded. A ball of flame spurted out from the rune, and a savage bird that looked similar to the vermilion bird rushed out. As soon as this savage bird appeared, its crimson eyes turned and immediately saw the faint bloody light around Xiaohua's body. It raised its head, and an indescribable ferocious aura mixed with an aura of desolation rushed towards Xiaohua. Yao! Yao! Xiaohua was shocked. Knowing that he had fallen into Yang Zijin's trap, he didn't dare to be negligent. His hands formed seals, and thousands of golden threads suddenly appeared and danced around the barbaric bird. Who? The barbaric bird opened its mouth and spat out a scarlet flame. Its body was several zhong in color and quickly burned. Xiaohua's binding technique was actually unable to land. Roar! The rune in front moved, and the rune in the back naturally didn't want to fall behind. A cyan light appeared, and the shadow of a savage beast that looked like an anteater appeared. It was also ferocious, and it was also difficult to conceal its desolate aura. Yarrow Formation. This is the 1000 Yarrow Sacred Realms Yarrow Formation. Damn it, why would the Copper Pillar State's prison have a Yarrow Formation? Suddenly, Xiaohua realized that this Yarrow Formation was probably what Chen Yushan was relying on. Sure enough, when the two kinds of auras clashed together, an unexpected change occurred. The entire pitch-black space instantly exploded, and the void split apart bit by bit. The pitch-black light scattered throughout the entire space. What was special was that the two strange runes circled around, and the two images of barbaric beasts carried an ancient aura as they charged towards Xiaohua. This aura seemed to be real, and one could believe that if it was on a real cliff, it would be a scene of mountain rocks bursting and trees splashing. The aura that could crush everything in the entire space attacked everything. Xiaohua's protective golden light flickered extremely under this aura, as if it could be broken at any time. Oh! Xiaohua was shocked, and then he activated the heavenly law embodiment technique. Woo-woo! The wind howled, and in the midst of the ferocious aura, a Tenjong golden body suddenly appeared. What made Xiaohua puzzled was that this Yarrow Formation actually didn't block the Heaven and Earth Yuan Qi. He activated the heavenly law embodiment technique, and a huge amount of Heaven and Earth Yuan Qi swarmed in. Woo! Xiaohua's two big hands separately waved, one from the front and one from the back, grabbing the two vicious beasts. Xiaohua's big hands carried the Heaven and Earth sleeve, and the two vicious beasts' phantoms were immediately covered. -12. Chapter 35-57. Roar tilde between the roars of the two vicious beasts, flames and water splashed everywhere, as if they could not escape from Xiaohua's control. Looking again, the torn void streaked across Xiaohua's golden body, and a wound like a baby's mouth flashed and disappeared, unable to cause real damage. Even when the stinky water fell, the golden light only flashed slightly, and in a moment, it was bounced away. This demon array is only SOSO. Xiaohua sneered. But at this moment, roar! Jiji! The two vicious beast phantoms roared again. Wave after wave of ferocious aura surged out from the phantoms like a rising tide, endlessly pouncing towards Xiaohua. Oh! What's going on? Xiaohua was suspicious and opened his eyes, only to see two runes in front of him. One was like a thread of fire, the other was like a gurgling stream. Above the two runes, the power of starlight fell from the sky and fell on them. The runes were using the power of starlight to produce an attack. The power of the moon and stars. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he waved his hand, wanting to use the wishful staff, but his mind changed, and little yellow and little black flew out of the space. The two little ones looked around curiously, and when they saw the two vicious beast phantoms formed by the runes, woof woof. Jiji. The two simultaneously roared excitedly and rushed towards the two phantoms. Alas, this Xiao was wrong. Looking at the two little ones and the vicious beast phantoms, Xiaohua sighed, little yellow and little black are monsters, and this battle is their nature. This Xiao only put them into the space, and although it is comfortable, even with the wonderful fate of yin and yang, it can't make them happy. Rather than this, it's better to let them go. Thinking of this, the knot in Xiao Hua's heart was untied. Qian Yushan's demon array was really powerful. Although the two little ones had some means, in the face of the two vicious beast phantoms, they were still not a match. Several times, they were beaten into the air, and blood gradually appeared on their bodies. Xiao Hua looked and couldn't help but feel distressed. Several times, he wanted to help, but several times, he held back. After a meal's time, although the two little ones fought more and more bravely, the phantoms did not know fatigue under the power of the stars, and soon the two little ones were at a disadvantage. This is a little unfair. Xiao Hua looked at the pillar of stellar force and thought to himself. Last time, when he had awakened Wang Biafei's spirit, he had used the devil blade to cut off the pillar of stellar force. Here, he didn't want to reveal the devil blade. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua clapped his hand and the ice mirror fell into the air. Following the activation of Xiao Hua's transcendence energy, the ice mirror expanded to several dozen feet in size and flew above his head. Buzz! An extremely heavy force landed on the ice mirror, causing it to emit a rumbling sound. Although the pillar of stellar force wasn't completely isolated, at least 70% of the pillar of stellar force was blocked by the ice mirror. Woof woof, GG. When they saw Xiao Hua make a move, the two little ones were excited. They wagged their tails and pounced over once again. After all, they were just illusions and the runes of the demonic array. Without the support of the pillar of stellar force, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the two little ones paused in midair at the same time. One let out a HMPH and the other let out a ha. Silver light emitted from their mouths and noses, and they absorbed the soul essences of the two runes into their bodies. As the illusions of the two vicious beasts disappeared, the entire demonic array collapsed in an instant. Hualala. The sound of water was incessant. It was the black water surrounding the Jade Mountain that fell from midair. The night sky was revealed, the light of the cliff also appeared. Right at the entrance of the cave in front of the Jade Mountain, a group of people wearing black armor, under the lead of a general who looked as if he had just lost his parents, stood there stupidly, looking at Xiao Hua in disbelief. Xiao Hua's cold eyes swept over them, and he simply ignored them. His gaze fell on the two bones floating in midair beside him. One of the bones was scarlet red, and the other was green. It was similar to the color of the two vicious beasts from before. However, these bones were rather large. One was as thick as Xiao Hua's leg, and the other was as big as a person. Moreover, the runes on these two bones were so dim that they were almost indiscernible. They were exactly the same as the runes that Xiao Hua had seen before. These are strange bones. Could it be that the demonic array was made from these bones? Xiao Hua knew that this was not the time to think too much. He waved his hand and collected the two bones. Then, he looked at the exhausted Goldie and Blackie flying beside him. How is it? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. It's nothing, father. Blackie replied, the boy feels quite full. It's just that the taste is a bit bitter. That little bird is a bit too weak. Goldie's reply was different from Blackie's. If it wasn't for the pillar giving it strength, the boy would have already defeated it. Ian, this is just the beginning. If you too. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly realized something. He couldn't help but be ecstatic. This was because Goldie and Blackie were not talking to him through their minds like before. Instead, they were speaking from their beasts' mouths. Although it was their first time speaking, it was actually very smooth. Presumably, the two little things had practiced a lot in the space. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed. Without saying anything, he waved his big sleeve and collected the two little things into the space. He looked at the group of people at the entrance of the cave and shouted, "This old man is in a good mood today. I originally wanted to overturn this Jade Mountain of yours, but I'll forget about it now. Quickly release Li Xiong and the others." Xiao. Daoist Xiao. The general at the front had just woken up. He hurriedly jumped down from his horse and bowed. This one is on horseback. Please invite Daoist Li and the others to come up. Mph, at least you know how to behave. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. All kinds of intimidating actions in his mind were thrown to the side. Sure enough, not long after, a young man covered in blood appeared in front of Xiao Hua. His hands and feet were shackled, and there were thick chains on his shoulders. The young man's hair was stuck on his face. There were many bloodstains on his face, and there were also some bloodstains on his face. However, these could not stop the young man's arrogance. Following the young man came out, there were dozens of people. Among them, 9 of them were strung on the same chain as the young man. The others were divided into 3 groups and strung on other chains. After the young man came out, he narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in the air. He stuck out his tongue and licked his dry lips. He did not open his mouth to speak. Damn it! Xiao Hua saw this group of people in such a miserable state. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He knew that Li Xiong and the others must have suffered a lot in the Jade Mountains National Prison. Even their cultivation would be crippled. After all, who would understand the principle of eliminating evil? Why don't you hurry up and remove their torture devices? Xiao Hua roared. Who knew that the general trembled and knelt down on one knee. He cried out, "Let Daoist know that Daoist Li and the others were already wearing torture devices when they were escorted here. The items used to remove the torture devices are not in the Jade Mountain." When Yang Zijin came over, he did not say anything. Xiao Hua frowned and asked. Lord Prime Minister did not give this general anything. The general lowered his head and said, he only said, if Daoist Li killed his way to the Jade Mountains cave, we did not need to do anything. Everything will be done according to Daoist Li's request. As long as Daoist Li and the others see them, he will definitely spare our lives. Oh! Why would this old man spare your lives? Xiao Hua was very surprised. Fellow Daoist. At this time, Li Xiong opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, because this Li's cultivation was not crippled by the copper pillar state. This Li's disciple should be the same. Therefore, Yang Zijin felt that fellow Daoist Li would let this Li spare their lives on this account. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and nodded. Fellow Daoist Li's cultivation is still there, congratulations. If these soldiers' lives are spared, then so be it. I will listen to fellow Daoist's orders, Li Xiong said coolly. Phut! Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a sword light flew out. Clang clang clang! Dozens of crisp sounds rang out. The chains on Li Xiong and the others' shoulders, as well as the torture tools on their hands and feet, were all shattered. Moreover, the sword light was extremely sharp. When the chains and torture tools broke, it did not affect their injuries at all. Fellow Daoist Li, this one is Xiao Hua of the Dao sect. Right now, I can be considered the state teacher of Jiang country. The princess of Changling and Qin Xiaoyao asked this Xiao to come to the Jade Mountain to rescue fellow Daoist. Fortunately, I did not fail my mission. Fellow Daoist and the others' injuries can be dealt with after leaving this place, Xiao Hua said as he put away his flying sword. Oh! Hearing Xiao Hua call himself the state teacher of Jiang country, Li Xiong was clearly stunned. However, he raised his hand with some difficulty and said, I thank the state teacher for saving us. I will listen to the state teacher's arrangement. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and shouted to the general of the Jade Mountain, why aren't you preparing the horses? Yes, yes. The general hurriedly waved his hand. The soldiers behind him hurriedly jumped down from their horses and led the horses in front of Li Xiong and the others. Let's go. Xiao Hua looked at the flat cable bridge again. It was rather narrow and could only allow one person to pass through. He waved his hand and said, all right. Li Xiong stepped on the stirrups and responded. He wanted to get on the horse, but he was too weak and could not get on. The black armored army of the Copper Pillar country did not dare to be negligent and quickly helped him up the horse. Thank you. Li Xiong glanced at the black armored army and said indifferently. The black armored army shrunk their necks and replied in a low voice, I don't dare. Li Xiong's words of thanks made Xiao Hua's lips curl up slightly. Facing an enemy soldier who had tortured him to such a state, Li Xiong was still able to say these 2 words. One could imagine Li Xiong's magnanimity. Xiao Hua did not save him in vain. The other dozens of people were even weaker than Li Xiong and were unable to get on their own horses. They were all sent onto their horses by the black-armored army. Li Xiong shook the reins and was about to move out when an anxious voice shouted from the other side of the cliff, "Daoist Master Xiao, Daoist Master Xiao, I have eyes but fail to see. I do not know Daoist Master Xiao's true appearance." Xiao Hua frowned and raised his head to look. He saw that young Master Zhu from before was rolling and crawling. It was unknown if he was flying or running, but in short, he appeared on the cliff in an extremely sorry state. There were a few bloodstains on his forehead, the scholar's scarf on his head had long disappeared, and the brocade robe on his body had several holes in it. -12. Chapter 3558. Who are you? Which fellow Daoist's disciple are you? Why should this old man help you? Xiao Hua asked indifferently. This young man is not a Daoist's disciple. Young Master Zhu took a deep breath and said, "This young man is a disciple of the Zhu clan in Zhuzhu's Wuyuan County. My name is Zhu Xiong. My father's name is a secret. My Zhu clan is the descendant of the great scholar Zhu Shi. Due to a rumor in the outside world that my ancestor Zhu Shi accidentally obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment, we were forced by a scholarly family. Now that my Zhu clan has declined, it can no longer be considered an aristocratic family. However, the king of the Copper Pillar State is still obsessed with the heavenly book's true enlightenment. My father and my Zhu clan's disciples were captured by them and brought to Chenyu Mountain. Now, their fate is unknown. Heavenly book's true enlightenment." Xiao Hua's face showed a thoughtful expression. He asked, "What's that?" "This young man doesn't know." Zhu Xiong replied without hesitation, "This young man has never heard my father mention this. I reckon that my Zhu clan has never obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment. This should have been made up by my ancestors' enemies. So it's like this." Xiao Hua nodded slightly. He understood that this so-called heavenly book's true enlightenment was probably a rumor. If the true enlightenment existed in this world, how could Xinxin, who came from a scholarly family, not know? How could the true enlightenment of the 5 Qis unifications be lost? However, to Xiao Hua, it didn't matter whether there was the heavenly book's true enlightenment or not. Since Zhu Xiong was a descendant of Zhu Shi and a member of the Zhu clan, how could Xiao Hua not help him? Thinking of the Zhu clan's family of 4 in Jinghua City, the talismans on their bodies, and the scroll that old lady Zhu gave to Xiao Hua in his own space, Xiao Hua couldn't just stand by and watch. "Quickly go and invite old Master Zhu Cheng out," Xiao Hua ordered indifferently. "This." The black-armored general slightly hesitated. However, he immediately came to his senses and hurriedly shouted, "Quickly, quickly bring old Master Zhu and his family out." Not long after, a Confucian scholar of around 50 years of age and a dozen slightly younger scholars were supported out. These Confucians were even more miserable than Li Xiong. Some had lost arms, some had lost legs, and even more of them did not have a single piece of good flesh on their bodies, their flesh badly mangled. The Confucian scholar in his 50s had his eyes half open, and his face was swollen to a size larger than an ordinary person's. He couldn't even walk. "Father!" Zhu Xiong couldn't hold it in any longer and hurriedly ran over from the chain bridge. At this time, a few family guards had already arrived behind him. They hurriedly pulled him back and said anxiously, "Young master, don't be anxious. You can't cross this chain bridge. Let me invite old master out first." "Oh, all right." Zhu Xiong was very obedient. He stopped and called out to Zhu Cheng, "Father, the person in the air is Jiangguo's national advisor, Daoist Master Xiao. He was the one who saved you." Zhu Cheng reluctantly raised his head and looked at Xiao Hua in the air. He cupped his hands with difficulty and said, "This old man, thanks Daoist Xiao." "You're welcome." Xiao Hua nodded. "This old man has some connections with the Zhu family, so saving you is something I should do." "Oh." Zhu Cheng stared blankly for a moment. His eyes turned slightly, and he opened his mouth again. "Daoist Master Xiao's cultivation, is it at the 5th level of origin energy?" Xiao Hua frowned. He didn't understand why Zhu Cheng asked such a question. After thinking for a while, He nodded and said, Probably. Why are you asking this? Zhu Cheng clenched his teeth. He extended his hand and pulled out his waist blade from the black armored army beside him. The black armored army was shocked. He hurriedly tried to dodge, but when the black armored army dodged, Zhu Cheng lost his balance and was about to fall. Xiao Hua waved his hand and supported Zhu Cheng. He smiled and said, Old Master Zhu, why lower yourself to the same level as a soldier? Phut! Zhu Cheng didn't answer. He flipped his hand, and the tip of his waist blade pierced into his calf. Shua! With another push, his calf was cut open, and blood flowed out. What are you doing? Xiao Hua was shocked, and the others were also puzzled. Father! Zhu Xiong shouted even louder. He wanted to pounce over. Zhu Cheng took a deep breath and threw his waist blade away. He extended 2 fingers and groped around in the flesh of his calf. He took out something smaller than the size of his finger. He extended his trembling arm and weakly said, Daoist Master Xiao saved my life. I have nothing to repay you with. This is something passed down from my ancestors. As for what it is exactly, I don't know. Today, I will offer this to Daoist Master. Without waiting for Zhu Cheng to finish speaking, Zhu Cheng's head tilted and he fainted. That little thing stained with blood was still tightly held in his hand, and he raised it in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua instantly understood Zhu Cheng's intention. He slightly shook his head. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. If Zhu Cheng was trying to divert the disaster, Zhu Cheng had also asked his own cultivation. His strength had reached the 5th level of origin energy. In the Daoist sect, he was a spirit-severing stage cultivator. He definitely had the strength to hold the Zhu clan's inheritance. If Zhu Cheng was only trying to repay a favor, Zhu Cheng had no reason to offer this item in front of so many people. It was obvious that he wanted to throw away the inheritance that had implicated the Zhu clan. Moreover, Xiao Hua was a Daoist sect cultivator. Zhu Cheng's Zhu clan's inheritance was used by Confucian cultivators. Zhu Cheng also didn't see Xiao Hua's flying sword. Naturally, he didn't know that Xiao Hua was a Confucian cultivator. What use did Xiao Hua have for it? Forget it. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, but didn't refuse. He simply went with the flow and waved his hand. The blood-stained item fell into his hand. After carefully examining it, he stored it in his space. Then, he coldly said to the people in front of the Jade Mountain, You all saw that this old man took this item. If anyone dares to leak the news, they will die. If anyone dares to leak it, I will definitely return to the Jade Mountain. I will kill everyone I see. Daoist Master. The general in front of the Jade Mountain smiled bitterly and said, If the monarch asks, this general doesn't know how to report it. Moreover, Zhu Cheng gave it to Daoist Master. Although the general didn't finish his sentence, Xiao Hua understood. After thinking a little, he felt that it was true. If these people didn't dare to leak it, who would know that it was in his hands? If they wanted to find it, wouldn't they have to look for the Zhu clan? Wouldn't he have taken advantage of them and still acted innocent? His previous warning was like taking off his pants to fart. It was completely unnecessary. You just have to report it as it is. Xiao Hua coldly said, however, you still have to pass a message to your monarch. Don't think too much. Although I don't like to kill people, if there is any entanglement, I will definitely not be merciful. There won't be any benefits like Jean Roucheré today. Yes, this general understands. This general has already reported it to my monarch. The general hurriedly replied. Li Xiong, who hadn't left before, raised his eyebrows when he heard Jean Roucheré's order. His eyes were secretly filled with astonishment. Then, he looked at the black-armored army in front of the Jade Mountain, who were more well-behaved than rabbits. He understood a lot in his heart. At this moment, the dozen or so guards of the Zhu clan also leaped over the cable bridge. When they arrived near, they all bowed to Xiao Hua and hurriedly left with the unconscious Zhu Cheng and the others. Zhu Xiong, who was at the edge of the cliff, knelt down towards Xiao Hua and kowtowed a few times before following the crowd. Previously, when Zhu Xiong asked Xiao Hua to save Zhu Cheng, he didn't kneel down. However, when he saw Xiao Hua accept Zhu Cheng's item, he He knew that Xiao Hua was righteous and had sincerely blocked the disaster for the Zhu clan. The gratitude in his heart was incomparable. Finally, he pushed the golden mountain down the jade pillar and threw away the gold under a man's knee. Looking at Zhu Xiong's back, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of Jinghua City's Zhu Feng'er and hurriedly transmitted a few words. Zhu Xiong stared blankly, his entire body trembling. He hurriedly turned his head. Although he didn't say anything, anyone could clearly see the wild joy on his face. Without waiting for Zhu Xiong to say anything, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a few jade bottles. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottles flew across the mountain stream and landed in front of Zhu Xiong. Xiao Hua then said in a clear voice, "Young Master Zhu, please tell your father on behalf of this old man that if this old man has the time, I will definitely pay a visit to the Zhu clan." Zhu Xiong received the jade bottle and carefully put it away. He said respectfully, "My Zhu clan will never forget Daoist Master Xiao's great kindness. Daoist Master Xiao's life will be passed down in my Zhu clan for generations." He, go. Xiao Hua waved his hand, lowered his head to look at Li Xiong and the others and laughed, "Fellow Li, let's go as well." "All right." Li Xiong patted his mount, and the black horse let out a long neigh. Its 4 hooves flipped as it rushed towards the direction of the chain bridge. However, after a while, dozens of people had crossed the chain bridge, and Li Xiong's cultivation had yet to recover, so his consciousness could not be used. However, seeing the destruction caused by Xiao Hua and the others, Li Xiong was even more surprised in his heart, and when he saw the black armored army that covered the entire mountain range, his surprise had already reached its peak. He was the second imperial advisor of the Jiang country, and had fought with the Copper Pillar State for many years. How could he not know the power of the Copper Pillar State? Since the Copper Pillar State had placed such an elite here, and even had the great scholar Zhong Rushui, then what about the Copper Pillar State's imperial advisor, Leng Qingge? General Hao Hu. All of a sudden, a general in bright armor appeared at the foot of a mountain not far away. His rock-like face had an indescribable expression as he looked at the top of Li Xiong and the others. Li Xiong was shocked when he saw this person. Immediately, Li Xiong followed General Hao Hu's gaze and saw Xiao Hua's figure slowly rising up in the sky. In front of him was a heavenly horse that was flashing with a holy light, dragging a carriage and flying out. It was precisely descending from the sky to welcome Xiao Hua. Daoist Master Xiao. Daoist Master Xiao. Li Xiong's heart was filled with complex emotions. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure land on the flying carriage, he muttered to himself. When Xiao Hua landed on the flying carriage, Liu Yi and Wang Yi flew up, saying that they were welcoming their master. The two of them had limited cultivation, and Xiao Hua was afraid that the battle would affect the two of them, so he made the heavenly horse and flying carriage stop at an extremely high altitude. The two of them could not see the specific situation, and could only hear the extremely loud rumbling sounds, as well as various colored lights. At the same time, they could feel the intense changes in the heaven and earth origin energy, causing their hearts to clench together. Later on, the entire mountain range fell silent, and the heavenly horse did not fly down, causing them to be even more afraid. Only when the heavenly horse was urged to fly slowly did the two of them finally relax. "You can wait here." Xiao Hua waved his hand and sat down cross-legged. With another wave of his hand, Little Yellow, Little Black and Little Silver appeared in the air. When Wang Yifei saw Little Yellow, his eyes widened. He instantly thought of what Xiao Hua had said earlier, and his expression changed greatly. -12. Chapter 3559. Father, Mother, 2 little mouthfuls of human language, jumping happily in front of Xiao Hua. Knowing that he can leave home, Xiao Huang also regains his previous happiness. When Xiao Huang sees Wang Bianfei, he wags his big tail and complains to Xiao Hua, Mother, this boy said his master is more powerful than Mother. You go and find his master. Boy doesn't believe that there is someone more powerful than Mother in this world. Master. Wang Bianfei miserably stands there, looking pitiful. He secretly glances at Xiao Huang, not knowing what to say. Xiao Huang, this is Mother's disciple, Wang Bianfei. Xiao Hua says with a smile, The master he is talking about is mother. Ah, is that so? Xiao Huang is stunned, then wags his tail and flies around Wang Bianfei a few times. His dark eyes stare at Wang Bianfei a few times, and cries, "Boy, since you are mother's disciple, why didn't you say so earlier?" "That, young master," Wang Bianfei says with a smile, "didn't this little one just know? Master has already scolded this little one before. Today, this little one apologizes to young master." Saying that, Wang Bianfei bows. Forget it, forget it. I won't lower myself to your level." Xiao Huang's tone is very similar to Xiao Hua's. His tail wagging is as clean and nimble as Xiao Hua's hands. "Bianfei, no need to call him young master," Xiao Hua snappily says, "just call him Xiao Huang. You are this old man's disciple who is not included in the wall, so you are of the same generation as him." "Yes, master." Wang Bianfei smiles, knowing that Xiao Hua is no longer angry with him. "Mother, what is the same generation?" Xiao Huang is very curious. Xiao Hua doesn't answer. He turns to Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei and says, "You wait in the car first, this old man will talk to them for a while." After Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei enter the flying car, Xiao Hua says with a smile, "Xiao Huang, this world is incomparably huge, it is not something our family can compare to. Moreover, there are a lot of people and a lot of things in this world that you can't know by staying by mother's side. Previously, mother was reluctant to let you go out because she was afraid that you would encounter some danger. Just now you also saw those two. Savage beasts' soul, although they are very powerful, there are many things in this world that are more powerful than them. Mother, this boy is not afraid." This was Goldie's answer. "Daddy, how powerful is he?" This was Little Black's question. "Hihi, you can only know how powerful he is when you see it with your own eyes. As for whether I'm afraid or not, that's secondary. The most important thing is to stay alive." Xiao Hua lovingly looked at the two little things. He knew that today was the day of separation, and these two demonic beasts couldn't even differentiate between mother and father. How could they become real demonic beasts? A demonic beast that couldn't even distinguish between peers was definitely not a qualified demonic beast. Xiao Hua's exhortation lasted for several hours. Seeing the scorching sun overhead, under the flying car, Li Xiong and the others were a little tired from riding. Only then did Xiao Hua reluctantly listen. It seemed that he still had a lot to say, as if he always wanted to keep the two little things by his side for a while longer. However, the two little things' wings had to grow and they could only leave his side. He had done everything, so the two little things could only remain ignorant forever. Seeing that Goldie was a little impatient and Little Black was listening with great interest, Xiao Hua couldn't hide a kind of feeling in his heart. It was as if the two's departure emptied his heart. Suddenly, a kind of distant memory appeared in his mind. That memory was some white hair, some tears, and some faint fragrance of milk. "Mother." Xiao Hua's eyes were moist. "Where are you?" "Mother." At this time, an even weaker voice sounded. "This boy also wants to go out with you. What are you going to do? You're so young, didn't you hear what mother said? It's very dangerous outside, wait until you're a little older before you tell mother." Goldie's voice was very impatient. Xiao Hua was helpless as he looked at Little Silver and said, "Little Silver, just call this old man master." "Yes, master." Little Silver felt very wronged. It looked like he also wanted to be rebellious like Goldie. "It's not that I don't want you to go." Xiao Hua suddenly had the awareness of being a mother, and almost self-taught, he coaxed Little Silver. "Look, your mother and Little Black are both gone, so doesn't this mean that there's no one by this old man's side? Do you want this old man to be alone at home?" "That's true." Little Silver mumbled a little. Xiao Hua struck while the iron was hot. Also, Little Silver is very capable, and can help this old man by staying with him. Wasn't it Little Silver who discovered the primordial stone mine in Black Cloud Ridge? You've really done this old man a big favor. Millimeter, the boy knows. Little Silver was a little proud as he nodded his little head repeatedly. "Mother, when is the boy leaving?" Goldie urged. Xiao Hua looked at the scorching sun and said, "Go now, but you have to remember, don't have the heart to harm others, and be on guard against them. You two have to discuss everything. Mother, You've already said this 4 times. Xiao Huang interrupted Xiao Hua's words. Little Black said, yes, father. The boy understands, he definitely won't let father worry. The boy will take a look outside, he'll be right back. Ari, go. Xiao Hua waved his hand. No matter how much they talked, they had to part in the end. Even if he didn't let Goldie go today, what about tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? All right. Goldie wagged his tail and soared into the sky. He casually put down something and flew away. Little Black didn't hesitate and hurriedly chased after him. Seeing the two leave, Xiao Hua's heart softened and his eyes became slightly warm. Fortunately, before Xiao Hua could release his divine senses to catch up with the two little ones, one black and one yellow light flashed, and the two little ones flew onto Xiao Hua's shoulders. They hugged Xiao Hua's head on each side and called out, Mother, Father, the boy really is going out to take a look, he'll be right back, don't be sad. Xiao Hua quietly rubbed his eyes and smiled. The wind is a little strong, Mother got sand with her own eyes. Don't worry, you two go. Be careful, take a look, and learn more. Mother will be waiting for you two at home. Although Goldie wanted to go out, he was also reluctant to part with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's sadness just now made his heart clench. Hearing Xiao Hua's comforting words, he seemed to have grown up a little. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, Mother, don't worry. The boy will definitely become the most awesome in the world, and then come back to help Mother. Mother doesn't want you to become the most awesome, and I don't want you to become the most outstanding. Xiao Hua smiled and stroked Goldie's and Little Black's heads. You two have a good experience. Coming back safely is Mother's greatest wish. I know, Mother. Goldie jumped up again. The boy is going out to take a look, maybe he'll come back tomorrow. Ian, it's all right. Xiao Hua concealed the parting in his heart and nodded slightly. It's already late, go quickly. Yes, Daddy. Little Black obediently flew away from Xiao Hua's shoulder. Goldie acted coquettishly for a moment before flying away. However, after flying away, Goldie flew back to Little Black's head. The two little ones could be considered to have turned their heads while flying. Xiao Hua felt very upset. His divine senses followed them for more than 10 li, and then looked into the distance for nearly 1,000 li before he retracted it. Ari, shouldn't I give them more things? Teach them more ways to protect themselves. Xiao Hua sighed and touched Little Silver, who had also taken the opportunity to jump onto his shoulder, a little regretful in his heart. Unlike Yuan Tongtian, Xiao Hua had only given the two little ones the rejuvenation pill. He hadn't even given them the mother-child spirit fruit, let alone any cultivation methods. Xiao Hua's intuition told him that what he had might not be the best. Moreover, Goldie and Little Black had already said earlier that some things had gradually emerged in their minds, which were their respective inheritances and cultivation paths suitable for them. If he stretched his hand out for no reason, it would only delay their growth, just like keeping them by his side in the past. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe the day after tomorrow? Xiao Hua looked into the distance and thought, they'll come back after suffering a little, right? Xiao Hua was now the father and mother of his children on a long journey. He was afraid that his children would suffer a lot, but he also wanted them to come back sooner, and even more so, he wanted them to have some success. But how could Xiao Hua control the affairs of this world? The waves that Goldie and Little Black had stirred up were beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. Little Silver, hurry up and cultivate when you get home. Xiao Hua was like a nagging old man as he exhorted Little Silver. Help this old man after you've succeeded in your cultivation. Otherwise, your mother will blame you when she comes back. Yes, Master. Little Silver nodded obediently like a little person. Come out later, Xiao Hua said. Yes, Master. Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei stayed in the flying car. Listening to Xiao Hua talk so much to the two little ones, they each had something on their minds and their eyes were red. Hearing Xiao Hua call them, they hurriedly came out to answer. Master, you're really too good to them. Liu Yi, who hadn't spoken rashly all this time, looked at Little Silver on Xiao Hua's shoulder and said enviously, it's not like you're a demon pet at all. This is this old man's boy. Xiao Hua sighed and stroked Little Silver. Little Silver also obediently licked Xiao Hua's finger with his little tongue. This old man has never treated them as demon pets. By the way, Master, I heard Daoist Xiao say that demon pets need to be bound with some kind of restriction, otherwise, they might betray their master or be captured by other cultivators. Liu Yi was still a little worried as he asked, Master, you definitely don't have any restrictions on them, right? If you let them go just like that. Millimeter, what kind of restriction would my children need? Xiao Hua said with a smile, they're all intelligent and can understand human speech. This old man has never thought of it that way. However, if anyone dares to bully them, this old man absolutely won't let them off even if I go to the 9th heaven or the 9th hell. Thinking of how protective Xiao Hua had been in the Black Cloud Ridge primordial stone mine, even when the black bear spirit had been bullied, Xiao Hua had still wanted the other party's arm. Liu Yi stuck out his tongue and laughed. I hope no one is blind. Otherwise, they'll be in deep trouble. -12. Chapter 3560. Master, is this little guy called Little Silver? Can he play with us? Wang Bianfei asked with shining eyes. If you let him stay in the small Chenkuan bag all the time, of course he'll get sick of it. This little one thinks it's great to be by your side. Why do they want to leave? I think it's because Master doesn't want them to come out. Hehe, you're right. Xiao Hua nodded and patted Little Silver. Go play with them. If you want to cultivate, come back to me. Yes, Master. Little Silver was more obedient than Little Yellow. He flew up from Xiao Hua's shoulder and landed on Wang Bianfei's head, making Wang Bianfei laugh. Seeing the envy in Liu Yi's eyes, Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. The divine power centipede came out of the space. Xiao Hua pointed at Liu Yi and said, you go too. Accompany Liu Yi, and I'll give you benefits in the future. Chirp chirp. The divine power centipede was very happy. Although its expression couldn't be seen, its twisted waist revealed its intentions. It drew a black line in the air and landed on Liu Yi's shoulder. The divine power centipede naturally wasn't as fun as Wang Bianfei, it was even a little scary. However, Liu Yi had seen how powerful it was before, so he naturally knew more than Wang Bianfei. When he plucked up his courage to touch the divine power centipede's cold carapace, the divine power centipede waved its antennae in response. Liu Yi's mood improved greatly. Ari, that's right. Although this Xiao's space is good and full of spirit qi, it doesn't have human energy. Who can resist loneliness? Even Liu of Nirvana strives to move forward in the midst of Nirvana. Xiao Hua looked at the four little things' happy and harmonious appearances and secretly made a plan in his heart. Whether it was the yang side of the space or the yin side of the space, they both needed energy. It looked like he would have to spend more effort in the future. I wonder how Little Yellow and Little Black are doing. As Xiao Hua pondered, he suddenly thought of the two little ones. In the end, Xiao Hua dismissed the idea of releasing his divine will or Buddhist awareness to check on the two little ones. Since he was going to let go, he might as well leave them behind. There were many things in the world that were difficult to reconcile, and he didn't lack parting with them. Below Xiao Hua, Li Xiong and the others were still riding on their horses. They did not dare to stop and rest. Although these people were cultivators, the torture they suffered in the Jade Mountain prison was several times more than ordinary people. Now, they could not hold on any longer. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across the flying carriage and ordered them to rest. Then, he walked towards Li Xiong and cupped his fists. Fellow Daoist Li, this Xiao has some matters to attend to, so this Xiao was unable to invite fellow Daoist to ride on the flying carriage. I hope you can understand. Li Xiong was stunned. He did not expect that Xiao Hua's first words would be an apology. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, the flying carriage is Daoist Xiao's own property. I have already received Daoist Xiao's grace. How can I care about such a small matter? Hehe, it's good that fellow Daoist doesn't mind. Xiao Hua said with a smile, fellow Daoist, please rest for a moment and check out the situation of the disciples first. All right. Li Xiong nodded and said, spiritual master, please return to the flying carriage first. I will report to you later. No need. Xiao Hua reached out his hand and took out some prepared clothes and some pills from his small universe bag. He handed them to Li Xiong and said, "This Xiao can just wait here. Thank you for your trouble, Daoist Xiao." Seeing that Xiao Hua had prepared so thoroughly, Li Xiong was very happy. He cupped his fists and received them. At this time, several disciples came over from behind him. After greeting Xiao Hua, they helped Li Xiong take the clothes and pills back. There was not much to say in the wilderness. Dozens of people helped each other remove the remaining iron chains and torture tools from their bodies. They simply tidied up and changed their clothes. After taking some pills refined by Xiao Hua and resting for a while, they gathered in front of Xiao Hua and bowed again to thank him. Seeing that everyone was still somewhat tired, Xiao Hua smiled and took out some spirit fruits and handed them to Li Xiong, saying, "Fellow Daoist Li, please distribute these to the disciples. After eating, we will rest for a while. It won't be too late to continue our journey when we are full of energy." Li Xiong saw that Xiao Hua respected him very much and did not directly overstep his boundaries. He was even happier in his heart. After receiving the spirit fruit, he first took one for himself, then had someone distribute it to the other disciples. He smiled and said, "Zhenren Xiao is really considerate. It has been a long time since I, Li, ate such a good spirit fruit. It's nothing. Fellow Daoist Li suffered a lot in prison. These are all compensation." Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at the people sitting on the ground. He asked, "How are the disciples?" When his disciples were mentioned, Li Xiong's face became bitter. He shook his head slightly and said, "The situation isn't too good." "Oh." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Can you tell me the details?" "Actually," Li Xiong smiled bitterly and explained, "the copper pillar state is far from as benevolent as Daoist Xiao thinks. That day, they didn't think about destroying this Li Xiong's nascent soul. It's just that before they used the Confucian secret technique, they suddenly stopped. At that time, the jailer didn't plan to hide this Li Xiong's plan. He directly passed down the order of the Copper Pillar State's king, saying that he wanted to keep this Li Xiong's nascent soul for great use. That's why this Li Xiong's nascent soul was imprisoned. It's not like what the former Jade Mountain Guard general said, keeping fellow Daoist's nascent soul for great use. Xiao Hua was somewhat confused. However, he also knew that Li Xiong couldn't possibly know the details. Asking would be pointless. Thus, he said, no matter what, fellow Daoist was able to keep his nascent soul. His 1,000 years of cultivation didn't turn into water. This is already very fortunate. What about your disciples? The disciples under this Li Xiong's tutelage aren't so lucky, Li Xiong said. There are 40 of them. Among them, there are 5 golden core cultivators. The rest are in the heartbeat and spirit silence realms. The 5 disciples' golden cores were completely destroyed. As for the other 40 disciples, more than half of their cultivations were destroyed. Now, they are all mortals. It's that serious. Although Xiao Hua said it was serious, his expression didn't change. After all, as Li Xiong said, they were both enemies. He was able to kill Lung Qingge and force Yang Zijin to self-detonate. Naturally, the king wouldn't be merciful to Li Xiong and the others. Needless to say, the remaining half of the disciples were naturally all low-level disciples in the heartbeat realm. It was the same logic as how he couldn't completely kill all the ordinary black armored army in front of the Jade Mountain. Li Xiong sighed, I am not talented. Although I have already cultivated to the nascent soul stage, I can be considered a Dao sect grandmaster of the hidden immortal continent. However, I do not have any attainments in the Dao of alchemy. Furthermore, the Dao sect of the hidden immortal continent is declining, and the spirit grass and pill formulas are all controlled by the Confucian cultivators. I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Oh. Xiao Hua looked at Li Xiong, who was not in a good mood, and laughed. Let those disciples whose cultivations have been destroyed come over. I will help them take a look, and maybe I can help you think of a way. Ah! Daoist Master Xiao? Li Xiong was startled, then immediately became wild with joy. He could not believe his own ears. After all, there was no special connection between strength and alchemy. He used to be the imperial advisor of a country, but he did not have such a method. Xiao Hua, this. Although he was the imperial advisor, he was actually the imperial advisor in name. What kind of spirit grass could the Jiang country, which no longer existed, provide him with? Xiao Hua actually proposed to take a look, and even said that he would think of a way. He must have some confidence. Daoist Master. Please wait a moment. Li Xiong anxiously turned his head and ordered his disciples to hurry over. Xiao Hua had some experience in recovering his cultivation. Nearly 30 cultivators checked one by one, and even asked in detail. Everyone could not suppress their joy as they stared at Xiao Hua's face. Unfortunately, other than a faint smile on Xiao Hua's face, there was still a faint smile. They could not see anything else, but it was this faint smile that gave them great confidence. Xiao Hua was extremely patient, and he checked for an entire hour before raising his head and smiling at Li Xiong. Fellow Daoist Li, there's no need to worry. After the shackles on your nascent soul are removed, I'll make a move with you, and the cultivations of these disciples will surely be able to recover completely. Alright, everyone's hearts had been hanging there the entire time. When Xiao Hua finally spat it out, they couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, and their gazes became even more fervent. Daoist Master. Li Xiong was also relieved. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. To be honest, in the previous Jade Mountain, he had never thought that he would be able to come out alive, and he was really tired of the days of being the imperial advisor. He had been the imperial advisor twice. The first time was the imperial advisor of the Li nation. He had racked his brains for the Li nation, but in the end, the Li nation was destroyed and he had no choice but to submit to the Jiang country. Fortunately, the Jiang country was also established by the Dao sect, and in order to survive, he had no choice but to become the second imperial advisor of the Jiang country. This was his second time as the imperial advisor. But even so, how could his disciples not have any friction with Qin Haoyue's disciples? Although the hidden immortal continent did not allow Dao sect cultivators to recruit disciples and only allowed Dao sect disciples to serve the country, weren't these disciples their own disciples? How could Li Xiong and Qin Haoyue not know about the friction between their disciples? In addition, Qin Haoyue was not a magnanimous person, so Li Xiong was suspected and probed a lot. Even so, in the end, Li Xiong's cultivation did not increase by much, and instead, because of the destruction of the Jiang country, he was captured by the Copper Pillar State and brought to the Jade Mountain. Xiao Hua saved Li Xiong, and when Xiao Hua revealed his identity, Li Xiong already understood. He had already thought of an excuse, and even when Xiao Hua asked why his cultivation was not crippled, he spoke up for the Jade Mountain's guard general. It was obvious that he did not want to offend the Copper Pillar State, and he did not want to be the master of a country that was really meaningless. However, Xiao Hua did not invite him to the flying carriage, nor did he mention anything about the Jiang country. Now, he even proposed to help his disciple recover his cultivation. Xiao Hua's words were good, he wanted to attack together with him, but he was very clear in his heart, how could he have such cultivation? This was Xiao Hua giving him face. Alright, fellow Daoist Li, please get on the carriage. I have some things to ask you. Xiao Hua did not look at Li Xiong's hesitation, and invited with a smile, if there is nothing special about your disciple, we should hurry on our way as soon as possible, and talk as we go. After all, if we can reach the Black Cloud Ridge earlier, we can help them recover their cultivation earlier. -12. Chapter 3561. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, Li Xiong could only sigh and smile. I don't dare to ask for advice. Daoist Xiao, please. Then, Li Xiong ordered the disciples to get on their horses and head towards Black Cloud Ridge. Although the disciples couldn't fully recover, when they heard that reaching Black Cloud Ridge a day earlier meant that they could recover their cultivation a day earlier, how could they not get on their horses? Even the disciples who still had their cultivation hurriedly activated their cultivation techniques, hoping to be able to fly as soon as possible. Xiao Hua waved his hand and the Pegasus flew down. Xiao Hua ordered Liu Yi and Wang Beifei to get off and ride the horse that Li Xiong was riding before, while he invited Li Xiong to get on the flying carriage. When the Pegasus rose into the sky again, Li Xiong and the other disciples also started to hurry on. Ari, Daoist Xiao. Li Xiong sat on the flying carriage and looked at the shining Pegasus in front of him and sighed, using this Pegasus, isn't it too ostentatious? Aren't you afraid that Confucian cultivators will be jealous? Hihi, this Xiao has done many things that would make Confucian cultivators jealous, this one won't make a difference. Xiao Hua laughed and didn't mind. This one won't make a difference. Li Xiong said with a smile, Daoist Xiao took the Zhu clan's ancestral item right in front of me. Although this Li doesn't know what it is, since even the king of Bronze Pillar country was moved, it must be something that Confucian cultivators would be jealous of. This Xiao also doesn't know what it is. Xiao Hua clapped his hand, and a fingernail-sized bone appeared in his hand. At that time, this Xiao only thought that this item would be of some use to this Xiao, and could also help the pitiful Zhu family resist the disaster, so I accepted it. Ari, that Zhu clan's head is too calculative. Li Xiong was naturally more calculative than Xiao Hua and sighed slightly. This item is hidden in the flesh. If this Li guessed correctly, it should be condensed together with the bone. Even if you used the clear eyes technique, you wouldn't be able to find it. The previous general of Jade Mountain used who knows how many methods to interrogate the whereabouts of this item, but he never thought that it would be in someone's calf. Moreover, the moment the Zhu clan's head escaped danger, he immediately took out this item without hesitation. He kept saying that he was grateful to Daoist Xiao, but he really had evil intentions. If this Li was this Li would definitely turn around and leave at that time and ignore him. Daoist Xiao is too kind. Daoist Li's head's hand? Xiao Hua asked with interest. Li Xiong replied without hesitation, even if I take this item, I will definitely make the generals of the Jade Mountain swear a blood oath. I will even force the king of the Bronze Pillar country to swear that no one will speak of this matter. That Zhu family head will go for wool and come home shorn. Haha, it's not that bad. Xiao Hua said with a smile, sometimes, suffering losses is a blessing. If not for the fact that Zhu Cheng was forced into a dead end, he might not have handed over the inheritance of his family to this Xiao. The reason why he did this was because he was thinking about the future of the Zhu clan, right? Xiao TTTS head TSSS have SS Xiao's Xiong's. SAS Xiao Hua laughed. Ha ha ha, fellow Daoist Li is really good at joking as Xiao's, head S, Xiao's. Don't even mention how much trouble this Xiao will have to bear for this item. Li Xiong laughed. Even the Buddha Kingdom's old Baldy wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Xiao Hua put away the bone. Li Xiong didn't ask any more questions. Xiao Hua's is. Xiao Hua's. Xiao Hua waited for Li Xiong to sit down before saying, if Daoist Xiao is at ease, then let me take a look at your nascent soul and see if I can help you break the seal. Of course I'm at ease. Li Xiong shook his head. But the seal on my nascent soul was made by a Confucian cultivator. I can't sense my nascent soul at all. Even if I use a technique, my nascent soul won't move. I'm afraid I'll have to find a Confucian cultivator's friend and ask them to help. But then, he smiled bitterly. Moreover, this seal was made by the Copper Pillar State's Lungchinga. If I want to break it, I'll have to find someone with a higher cultivation than him. I'm afraid they'll have to be at the 5th level of the Origin Energy Great Grandmaster. Secondly, the Great Grandmaster has to be afraid of the Copper Pillar States. Difficult. But then, Li Xiong suddenly froze. In his mind, the scene of Xiao Hua spitting out a flying sword and chopping off the chains on his body appeared. Then, he thought about how Xiao Hua took the Zhu clan's ancestral treasure without hesitation. He almost blurted out, Daoist Master? Could it be, you also know Confucian cultivation techniques? Just SOSO. Xiao Hua smiled. My cultivation isn't good enough. I can barely kill Lungchinga. Ah! Lungchinga was killed by Daoist Xiao? Li Xiong was even more shocked. Yes, Yang Zijin is also dead. Xiao Hua said indifferently. Just in front of the Jade Mountain. Li Xiong was stunned for a long time before coming back to his senses. He nodded and said, I finally understand why the Jade Mountain's Guardian General was so respectful to Daoist Xiao. Even General Hao, who stood at the top of the mountain and didn't dare to say a word. Oh, looks like Zhu Cheng really went for wool and came home shorn. This is called suffering a loss is a blessing. Xiao Hua corrected. Now, Daoist Xiao can rest assured and let me take a look. Of course, of course. At this point, how could Li Xiong not be at ease with Xiao Hua? How could he not let Xiao Hua take a look? After obtaining Li Xiong's permission, Xiao Hua extended his hand and pointed his index finger at Li Xiong's lower dantian. A thin, almost inaudible crystal thread came out from his index finger. After watching the crystal thread enter Li Xiong's body, Xiao Hua closed his eyes and seemed to be thinking. Li Xiong looked at Xiao Hua's expression. It was actually the same as the previous disciples, with a smile on his face. Li Xiong's heart also rose to his throat. Fortunately, after half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and said with a smile, Daoist Li, this restriction was set up by the bronze pillar state using the 5-brocade cloud diagram. If you don't know the 5-brocade cloud diagram, I'm afraid it won't be easy to break it. Ah! Li Xiong clearly hadn't heard of the 5-brocade cloud diagram. His face revealed disappointment. He forced a smile and said, Many thanks, Daoist Xiao. Since you know the origin of the restriction, I'll find someone to break it later. Haha, Daoist Li, why didn't you let me finish? Xiao Hua smiled and said, this 5-brocade cloud diagram was also the killing array that Lung Qingge had set up in the Black Cloud Ridge that day. This Xiao killed Lung Qingge and just happened to destroy this array. That array diagram is now in this Xiao's hands. Phew. Li Xiong let out a breath of relief. He wasn't surprised anymore. After all, Xiao Hua gave him too many surprises. Oh! Xiao Hua saw that Li Xiong's face didn't show any joy. He felt strange and asked, What? Could it be that Daoist Li doesn't believe me? Li Xiong helplessly shook his head. Daoist Xiao, I feel that there isn't any difficulty for you at all. I'm too lazy to be happy. Haha, Daoist Li's words are good. I like it very much. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, if Daoist Li is anxious, I can break the restriction in your body right now. Many thanks, Daoist Xiao. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't anxious. A nascent soul cultivator suddenly turned into a mortal. The sense of insecurity in his heart was far greater than others. Li Xiong hurriedly cupped his hands and said. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, however, I'm afraid that I can't let Daoist Li see the method to break the restriction. No worries. Li Xiong hurriedly said with a smile, right now, I'm the fish and Daoist Xiao is the knife. As long as Daoist Xiao doesn't chop me into fish paste, it's fine. Ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed and patted the heavenly horse. The heavenly horse neighed and rushed into the sky with the flying carriage. In a moment, it disappeared from everyone's eyes. The restriction on Li Xiong's nascent soul came from the 5-brocade cloud diagram. Not only could the 5-brocade cloud diagram be broken, even the 5-chi thunder could also break it. Xiao Hua even thought about whether or not he should use the heaven cleansing earth technique to try it. However, seeing that the nascent soul in Li Xiong's lower dantian was already extremely weak, Xiao Hua was afraid that he might injure this nascent soul and damage Li Xiong's Dao foundation. As the saying goes, those who don't know how to do it are not difficult for those who know how to do it. In Li Xiong's eyes, the seemingly extremely difficult restriction was broken by Xiao Hua in the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Li Xiong opened his eyes and sensed his body. His nascent soul had already returned to normal and there was nothing abnormal about his body. Although he didn't know if Xiao Hua did anything to him, looking at Xiao Hua's very calm expression, he didn't think too much. After all, Xiao Hua didn't need to go through so much trouble. Daoist Xiao, do you have a jade phosphorus pill? After checking his nascent soul, Li Xiong didn't hold back and simply asked Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua shook his head. I don't have a jade phosphorus pill. Li Xiong was slightly disappointed and said with a smile, my nascent soul was injured. If I cultivate in peace, I'm afraid it will take several years to recover. When I was captured, all my medicinal pills, magic weapons, and other things fell into the bronze pillar state. When Daoist Xiao rescued me, the guarding general didn't return my Chenkuan bag. Presumably, those things aren't in the Jade Mountain, and my jade phosphorus pill is in my tranquil bag. I don't have a jade phosphorus pill, but I have a nourishing spirit pill and a clear Li pill. Xiao Hua said with a smile and took out 2 jade bottles. Nourishing spirit pill? Clear Li pill? Li Xiong frowned. He had never heard of the names of these 2 medicinal pills. Oh, nourishing spirit pill is used to repair divine sense, and clear Li pill is used by golden core cultivators. Xiao Hua explained. I don't have medicinal pills for nascent soul cultivators like me, so I ask for fellow Daoist Li's forgiveness. Li Xiong smiled bitterly. How could the medicinal pills used by golden core cultivators and nascent soul cultivators be the same? However, when he thought about it, Xiao Hua wasn't a real state preceptor, so how could he have real medicinal pills? Fellow Daoist Li, take it first. It's better than nothing. Xiao Hua handed over the jade bottles and said, if fellow Daoist Li has the pill recipe, I can actually refine a jade phosphorus pill for fellow Daoist Li. Hey, the jade phosphorus pill's pill recipe is in the hands of state preceptor Qin Haoyue. I don't have it. Li Xiong's words were not without resentment. When I was the state preceptor in Li country, I also entrusted others to refine medicinal pills. The pill recipe I obtained later is also in my Chenkuen bag. -12. Chapter 3562. After Li Xiong finished speaking, he looked at the jade bottle that Xiao Hua handed to him. After pondering for a bit, he reached out and took it. After all, Xiao Hua was right. Something is better than nothing. His nascent soul is weak, any kind of medicinal pill is fine. Looking at the ugly medicinal pill in his hand, Li Xiong's face revealed a strange expression as expected. However, after he took the soul-nourishing pill, his face became brilliant. At first, he was stunned, then he became ecstatic. Immediately after, he sat down cross-legged and didn't speak anymore. This cultivation lasted for 2 hours. Xiao Hua also didn't disturb Li Xiong. He drove the flying carriage down from the sky and flew above the heads of the disciples who were galloping on their horses. Woo-woo. Above Li Xiong's head, a faint buzzing sound could be heard. Then, a whirlwind appeared in mid-air. The whirlwind grew bigger and bigger, from a few feet wide to several feet wide. Then, the pressure of a yuanying stage cultivator appeared and spread out in all directions. Xiao Hua didn't care, but Li Xiong's disciples below him were overjoyed. One by one, they pulled their horses and waited on the ground. Under Li Xiong's pressure, the horses' hooves trembled, as if they couldn't stand steadily. Hee. Xiao Hua slightly smiled and patted the back of the Pegasus. The Pegasus once again soared into the sky and flew for several hundred feet before stopping. Li Xiong's pressure continued to increase. In the end, even the Pegasus was somewhat uneasy, snorting from its mouth and nose. Xiao Hua slightly frowned, pondering whether he should wake Li Xiong or not. Fortunately, after another moment, Li Xiong slowly opened his eyes. That pressure was immediately absorbed into Li Xiong's Niwen Palace like a falling tide. Hee. Congratulations fellow Daoist Li. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Alas, I still have to thank Daoist Master Xiao. Li Xiong couldn't help but sigh again. I underestimated Daoist Master's so-called gold core medicinal pill. It actually has such a strong healing effect on my divine sense. I feel that my divine sense is going to have a breakthrough again, then I have to congratulate fellow Daoist even more, Xiao Hua said. There are still many in the jade bottle, enough for fellow Daoist to use. I'm now even more curious about fellow Daoist's clear Li pill. Li Xiong couldn't help but open the other jade bottle and poured out an equally ugly clear Li pill. Xiao Hua smiled and said, fellow Daoist, you should stay here first. Fellow Daoist's disciple is very concerned about you. Hehe, these children have really suffered under this Li. Li Xiong's face revealed a smile when he mentioned his disciples. As the heavenly horse landed, Li Xiong and the rest of his disciples were all laughing and congratulating their imperial advisor. In reality, their master's cultivation had recovered. Li Xiong said a few words of encouragement, and everyone continued to move forward. In anticipation, Li Xiong took the clear Li Dan, but this time the clear Li Dan did not give Li Xiong a special surprise. Although the medicinal power of the clear Li Dan was very good, it was just a drop in the bucket for a Yuanying stage cultivator. Seeing that Li Xiong had only opened his eyes for a moment, Xiao Hua naturally knew that Li Xiong was disappointed. However, he just smiled and didn't say anything. How could he not take a good pill himself? Although he had the metal essence thriving marrow now, he did not dare to give it to Li Xiong. Spiritual items of heaven and earth were not something that ordinary cultivators could use at will. Although Li Xiong's meridians were tough, they were still far from Xiao Hua's. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in the metal essence thriving marrow would definitely cause Li Xiong's meridians to collapse like a mountain flood. As for the 5 qi righteous thunder, not to mention Li Xiong's Yuanying, even if Li Xiong used his own life magic treasure, he would not be able to resist it. Wanting to use the 5 qi righteous thunder to refine his Yuanying was simply dreaming. Li Xiong was helpless and could only continue to take the clear Li Dan. After a few days, the Black Cloud Ridge was already in sight. Along the way, there were no pursuers from the Copper Pillar State. Instead, they met a few groups of Confucian cultivators. Confucian cultivators were indeed somewhat different from Daoist disciples. Most of the Confucian cultivators only revealed admiration in their eyes. They took a few more glances at Xiao Hua's heavenly horse and flying chariot, but did not look for trouble. Only 2 or 3 people who were obviously reindeer followed for a while. When Xiao Hua sighed with emotion, they were frightened by Li Xiong's spiritual sense and fled. This is the Black Cloud Ridge. Although he had yet to reach the Black Cloud Ridge, Li Xiong could not help but release his spiritual sense. After all, Li Xiong naturally knew the original appearance of the Black Cloud Ridge, and even knew about the Black Cloud Ridge's origin stone mines. Furthermore, when he was at the previous Jade Mountain, Xiao Hua had already mentioned the Black Cloud Ridge, so how could Li Xiong not be curious? Seeing the current appearance of the Black Cloud Ridge, Li Xiong did not want to be surprised, but he was still surprised. How could this be the Black Cloud Ridge in his impression? Xiao Hua laughed and said, "This is naturally not the real Black Cloud Ridge. Fellow Daoist Li, take a closer look." Oh! Li Xiong was slightly startled. He released his spiritual sense again and carefully probed, but after a full meal, Li Xiong suddenly raised his eyebrows, opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. He looked again, and in the end, he sighed deeply and said, "The Daoist master actually set up a great formation in the entire Black Cloud Ridge. This is truly something that I would never have dreamed of. Even the entire Jiang country would not be able to complete it." Heh. Xiao Hua laughed and urged the heaven horse to descend. Li Xiong suddenly thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Oh right, this Black Cloud Ridge's underground. There seems to be an origin stone mine. Jiang country, Copper Pillar country, and Jiosha country are mining it separately. Let's not talk about the Copper Pillar country. What about the Jiosha country?" Naturally, they were chased away by this Xiao. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "Previously, the soldiers of the Jiang country had all submitted to the Jiosha country after the destruction of the Jiang country. Why would I keep them?" Oh! Li Xiong nodded absent-mindedly. He finally understood what Xiao Hua meant when he said, "I've done a lot of things that make Confucian cultivators jealous." This origin stone mine was probably even more eye-catching than the Zhu family's inheritance, right? Furthermore, Xiao Hua had even openly offended the Jiosha country, which was the closest to the Black Cloud Ridge and was established by the Buddhist sect. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Black Cloud Ridge and did not see any spirit demon patrolling, Xiao Hua was a little displeased. He raised his hand and was about to cast a spell when he heard a sharp eagle cry from high up in the sky. 2 shadows that were about 3 meters in size descended from the clouds, and the wings of the 2 birds of prey blocked the sunlight above Xiao Hua and the others. Ayo, that's right, there are still 3 demon kings in the Black Cloud Ridge. Li Xiong suddenly realized, could it be that Daoist Master Xiao killed them all? Is this Xiao that cruel? Xiao Hua pinched his chin, looking very innocent. The 2 birds of prey circled a few times above Xiao Hua's head, and with 2 cries, they descended towards the black cloud ridge. A moment later, the two birds of prey charged into the sky again, still hidden behind the clouds. On the black cloud ridge, light suddenly flashed, and the scene in front of everyone's eyes twisted strangely a few times. From midair to the ground, a crack dozens of meters in size appeared out of nowhere. This crack was like a large door, flowing with light and splendor. The three demon kings brought a dozen little demons, and behind them, Qin Xiaoyaro, Xiao Jian, Changling, and the others flew out, respectfully standing on both sides of the door. When Xiao Hua's horse landed, they all bowed and said, "Welcome back, master. Get up, see who's here." Xiao Hua smiled and stood up, helping everyone up, and flew down from the flying carriage with Li Xiong. Junior greets Daoist Master Li. We greet State Preceptor Li. The Black Bear Spirit and the others ignored Li Xiong. Qin Xiaoyaro, the Changling princess, and the other people of Jiang country were very happy to see Li Xiong, and hurriedly bowed. "Ha, all of you, get up." Li Xiong waved his hand, looking much more practiced than Xiao Hua. He said with a smile, "Seeing you all safe and sound, this old man is reassured." Then, Li Xiong bowed to the Changling princess alone and said, "This Li greets the princess." The Changling princess's eyes were slightly red, and she hurriedly returned the greeting. "State Preceptor, no need to be so courteous. Changling is no longer a princess. In the future, I will have to rely on State Preceptor and Master." Ha. The Changling princess's words naturally had a double meaning, but Li Xiong did not respond. As they spoke, Li Xiong's disciples arrived on their horses. Qin Xiaoyaro and the others were very happy, and hurried forward to greet them, helping them down from their horses. "Xiaoyaro, help arrange for Daoist Master Li's disciples. We will talk in the cave." Xiao Hua looked at the joyful crowd and ordered. "Yes, this disciple knows." Qin Xiaoyaro immediately answered. "Also, Black Bear, prepare a banquet to welcome Daoist Master Li and the others." "Yes, this lowly one knows." "Old Master, do not worry." The Black Bear Spirit patted his chest, and left with the Golden Eagle and White Lion. Li Xiong looked at the orderly Black Cloud Ridge, and the appearance of the three Yarrow Kings. He was filled with curiosity. These Yarrow could be called kings. Their strength spoke for themselves, and their personalities were unruly. It was easy to kill them, but difficult to make them lower themselves. He did not understand how Xiao Hua had done it. After entering the cave, the people of Black Cloud Ridge took their seats. Liu Yi and Wang Yifei stood on either side of Xiao Hua. Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede did not go back into the space, and stayed on their shoulders. Li Xiong's seat was not far from Xiao Hua's. It was a guest seat. Li Xiong was very satisfied and sat down as well. Looking at the magnificent cave, he sighed, "Spiritual Master Xiao, I've been to this Black Cloud Ridge before. It was not like this at all. I didn't expect that in Spiritual Master Xiao's hands, it would turn something rotten into something magical. Haha, this is not my doing." Xiao Hua laughed and said, "This is a big gift from Lung Chinga." Saying this, Xiao Hua told him about the situation of Lung Chinga setting up the array in Black Cloud Ridge, and then briefly described what had happened. Finally, he glanced at the cave and said, "Daoist Master Li, now everything is ready in Black Cloud Ridge. We only need one thing to help Princess Ling establish her country. Can you give me a hand?" "This." Li Xiong smiled bitterly, knowing that what was to come would come in the end. Although his cultivation had been restored, many of his disciples had not. Xiao Hua had used this weakness to make him submit, so he really couldn't refuse. However, he didn't want to repeat the same mistakes as before, so he tried to shirk the responsibility. "This matter is of great importance, so let this Li carefully consider it." -12. Chapter 3563. That's true. Xiao Hua did not care and said with a smile, "When this old man goes to the Jade Pavilion conference, the matter of guarding Black Cloud Ridge is of great importance. Xiao Yarrow's cultivation is not enough and this old man is worried. So this old man wants to ask fellow Daoist to help this old man. Since fellow Daoist wants to consider, then wait until this old man recovers fellow Daoist's disciples' cultivation, and tell this old man when we depart. Ah! Li Xiong gaped and said curiously, Daoist. Daoist wants I to help you guard for a few days. Yes. What does fellow Daoist think this old man means by asking fellow Daoist to help this old man? Xiao Hua pretended to be surprised. Oh! Li Xiong was slightly confused. He had not expected Xiao Hua's request to be so low that he could not respond. The Changling princess did not lose the chance to say in a low voice, Old master, imperial tutor means, oh, this old man understand. Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, fellow Daoist Li, do not think too much. This old man is not good at state affairs, and has no experience as an imperial tutor. Changling once said that they would ask fellow Daoist Li to come out again to be the second imperial tutor of Jiang country. So this old man had Xiao Yarrow investigate fellow Daoist's whereabouts, and this old man came to Jade Mountain. However, this old man saw that fellow Daoist was not interested in being an imperial tutor, so this old man did not mention it. Whether fellow Daoist Li becomes an imperial tutor has nothing to do with this old man. This will depend on Changling's charm. This old man will not interfere. Even if fellow Daoist is not willing to stay in Black Cloud Ridge after the banquet, this old man will immediately help fellow Daoist recover his disciple's cultivation, and fellow Daoist can take his disciple and leave Black Cloud Ridge. With the power of Black Cloud Ridge's formation, this old man believes that Xiao Yarrow and the others can last until this old man returns from the Jade Pavilion conference. Old master, do not worry. This disciple is indebted to old master for saving my life, and will not hesitate to die for old master. Qin Xiaoyaro hurriedly got up and answered with one knee on the ground. Li Xiong's face burned. He naturally knew that Qin Xiaoyao's words were meant for him to hear, but he couldn't refute it. What Qin Xiaoyaro said was the truth. Moreover, Qin Xiaoyaro was his junior disciple. If Qin Xiaoyaro could say such words, then what should he do with the help of Xiao Hua? Fortunately, without waiting for Li Xiong to think more, Xiao Hua smiled and said, I understand your thoughts. Everyone has the right to choose. I will never force people. Let's go. I think the banquet at Black Bear's side has already been set up. Today, we will only welcome Zhenren Li with a feast. Nothing else. With that, Xiao Hua pulled Li Xiong's hand and walked out of the cave. Since ancient times, there had never been a banquet that was not perfect, and there were naturally no guests who did not enjoy themselves. Even the legendary Hongmen banquet was the same, and the Black Cloud Ridge's banquet was no exception. After a night of drinking, the spirit demons were lying all over the mountains and plains, and it was truly unsightly. The soldiers of Jiang country were still considered reserved. In the morning, they faced the morning sun and spat out the old and accepted the new. Daoist Master Xiao. Standing in front of the cave, Li Xiong smiled and said to Xiao Hua, Qin Xiaoyaro and the others submitting to Daoist Master is not out of my expectations, but the 3 demon kings of the Black Cloud Ridge and their demon soldiers submitting to Daoist Master is out of my expectations. These demons, to be honest, if Daoist Master Xiao does not restrain them enough, it will cause a lot of trouble for Daoist Master. Yes, this Xiao knows. Xiao Hua nodded and pointed at the demons, saying, these demons have submitted to this Xiao the most, and have always been in fear. Previously, there was Leng Qingge forcing them from behind, and then there was the Confucian cultivators' formation killing them. Recently, I heard from the Black Bear spirit that many Confucian cultivators have begun to have designs on the Black Cloud Ridge. This old man is unwilling to let Qin Xiaoyaro and the others go out to face the enemy, so these demons have to take the lead. Although the casualties are not great, these demons need to vent their emotions. A banquet should be useful. Of course, Daoist Master Li's reminder is in my heart. Since these demons have submitted to my fortune gate, this Xiao will definitely restrain them and not harm the hidden immortal continent. This. Hearing Xiao Hua mention the fortune gate, Li Xiong was not surprised. After all, the current Fortune Gate's outer disciples were all Dao cultivators from Jiang country. He had only been in the Black Cloud Ridge for half a day, and he already knew a lot of things. Li Xiong thought for a moment and said, Daoist Master Xiao, This Li has an idea, but I don't know if I should say it. He, please speak. Xiao Hua laughed. He was eager for Li Xiong to say more. The hidden immortal continent forbids Dao sect disciples from establishing sects. This is public opinion. Although Daoist Master Xiao's cultivation is profound, compared to the accumulation of Confucian cultivators who have been passed down for who knows how many years, there is still a big gap. Li Xiong did not hide anything and said, Daoist Master Xiao certainly wants to establish a Dao sect, but in a situation where we cannot fight against the entire hidden immortal continent, it is very inappropriate to rashly bring up the fortune gate. Oh. Then what does Daoist Master think? Xiao Hua frowned, his face full of worry. Li Xiong laughed and said, since it is not allowed to establish a sect, then take charge of a country. Now that Jiang country has been destroyed, if Daoist Master Xiao establishes Jiang country again, naturally you can name it Fortune Country. You can even call it Xiao Country. Daoist Master Xiao is building this country into an empire, with vast territory. Daoist Master Li. Xiao Hua interrupted Li Xiong's words, shaking his head and saying, this Xiao has already promised the Changling princess to help her restore her country. Wouldn't doing this chill her heart? This Xiao also become a person who goes back on his words. That's even simpler. Li Xiong laughed and said, Daoist Master Xiao can just support another country. Yes, that's true. Xiao Hua woke from a dream, slapped his forehead, but then he grimaced. The problem isn't controlling a country different from a sect? There has to be a country ruler. If there is a country ruler, wouldn't there be a rift between us? Li Xiong laughed and said, use Daoist Master Xiao's own bloodline to be the country ruler. This Xiao country is justified. Forget it. Let's talk about it later. As Xiao Hua spoke, he actually walked into the trap. He simply waved his hand and said, this Xiao made a sect to simplify things, to be a hands-off shopkeeper. Now that I heard Daoist Master Li say that he also wants to marry and have children, wouldn't that be troublesome? Ha ha ha. Li Xiong also laughed. The two spoke a few more words. Seeing the sun rise from the mountain peak, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Daoist Master Li, send a disciple up. You and I will see how to help them recover their cultivation. All right. Li Xiong saw that Xiao Hua was so straightforward and was happy in his heart. He transmitted his voice, and not long after, a Jindan disciple came up. Xiao Hua took Li Xiong and the disciple into the quiet room. Xiao Hua only slightly checked the injury and already understood that this disciple's Jindan was broken. His lower dantian was pierced by the sword qi of the Confucian cultivator, and some of the meridians in his body were also cut off by the sword qi. As long as the meridians and dantian were repaired, Jindan would not be difficult. So Xiao Hua pretended to discuss with Li Xiong for a moment, took out the heaven mending pill, explained to Li Xiong how to use it, and let Li Xiong help his disciple. Li Xiong looked at the pill in his hand, his mouth bitter. How could he not understand that as long as he had this heaven mending pill, why would he need to do it himself? Why would Xiao Hua need to discuss with him? He really couldn't understand. How many elixirs could Xiao Hua have in this small Chenkuan bag? After the disciple took the heaven mending pill, Li Xiong used his divine sense to explore for a moment. He knew that the heaven mending pill's effect was godly, and it was repairing the meridians and dantian at a speed visible to the naked eye. But then, Li Xiong worriedly asked, Daoist Master Xiao, this pill is really miraculous, but do you know how many? Enough. Seeing this, Xiao Hua simply clapped his hand, and a sufficient number of jade bottles were sent in front of Li Xiong. Li Xiong was so shocked that a walnut could be stuffed in his mouth. A single heaven mending pill was already incomparably precious, but Xiao Hua actually gave him dozens of pills the moment he opened his mouth. Too much. Li Xiong muttered. His raised hand was as heavy as 1,000 catties. The jade bottles were easy to put away, but his heart was too heavy. No matter. Xiao Hua said with a smile, everyone in Black Cloud Ridge is more precious than this pill. Hearing Xiao Hua's words that did not treat him as an outsider, and thinking back to Qin Haoyue's guarded appearance, Li Xiong's heart was somewhat shaken. Daoist Master Li, you help the disciples recover their cultivation here. I will go take a look at the Source Stone mine. Xiao Hua stood up and said with a smile, "That is the vital point of Black Cloud Ridge, we cannot lose it." After saying this, without waiting for Li Xiong to speak, Xiao Hua stood up and walked out of the quiet room. Outside the quiet room, Liu Yi and Wang Bianfei stood below the high platform, both sitting cross-legged with their eyes slightly closed. Wang Bianfei was somewhat lively as he scurried around, but the god power centipede was quite well behaved as it lay on the ground, the black qi around its body expanding and contracting as if it was breathing, as if it was cultivating. Seeing this, Xiao Hua smiled mightily. With a wave of his hand, Little Silver and the god power centipede both flew onto his shoulder. Then, Xiao Hua rode a magic cloud and flew towards the Source Stone mine. Fortunately, although many of the demons in the front mountain had not yet sobered up, the entrance to the Source Stone mine was guarded by a white lion. From time to time, demons would enter and exit the mine, and it looked like they were mining source stones. Seeing Xiao Hua fly over, the white lion immediately came over and respectfully greeted him. "Greetings, Master." "Rise, White Lion," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Why are you up so early? Didn't you drink last night?" Hearing Xiao Hua mention wine, the white lion unconsciously stuck out its scarlet tongue and licked its lips. Smiling, it said, "Master, of course this little one drank. However, this little one felt that the spirit wine that Master bestowed upon this little one was rather rare, so I left some for my subordinates who profited from it. I didn't enjoy much of it myself. Moreover, it's this little one's turn to be on duty today. This little one didn't dare to delay Master's matters, so I came early." "Good." Xiao Hua was very happy to hear this. Although the black bear spirit was loyal, it was really lazy and especially timid. This white lion, on the other hand, seemed to be a cautious and attentive one. Saying this, Xiao Hua flipped his hand and took out a jade pot, handing it to the white lion. "This is a reward from this old man." The spirit wine in Xiao Hua's space was now brewed by Xiao Gua out of boredom. The wine's fragrance assailed the nostrils, and the color was sparkling and translucent. It was who knew how many times better than the wine brewed by ordinary cultivators. No wonder a demon like the white lion was greedy. -12. Chapter 3564. Thank you for your reward, Master. White Lion was overjoyed and received the wine with both hands. His Adam's apple unconsciously gulped a few times. "How's the situation at the elemental stone mine?" Xiao Hua asked after White Lion kept the wine. White Lion explained the situation of the elemental stone mine in detail. Xiao Hua actually didn't know how the real elemental stone mine was mined, but hearing White Lion's orderly explanation, he nodded repeatedly. White Lion was even more delighted to see Xiao Hua's approval. After White Lion finished speaking, he saw a few more demons coming out of the cave with cloth bags and other items in their hands. When they reached a place not far from the cave, they shook their hands and opened the cloth bags. A large pile of bones tumbled out. Xiao Hua frowned and scanned with his divine sense. His expression changed unconsciously, and he said in a cold voice, "White Lion, what's with this pit full of bones?" "Oh, reporting to Master." White Lion wasn't afraid and smiled. "These were all cleared out from the elemental stone mine. I'm afraid that the mine soldiers of the Three Kingdoms died in the mine and were casually thrown in here. When we saw these bones while mining, we told Big Brother. Big Brother knows that Master is kind and likes cleanliness, so he asked us to clear these bones out and place them in this pit. When the time comes, we'll bury them all." "Good, you've worked hard." Xiao Hua patted White Lion's shoulder and encouraged, "I'll go find some cultivation methods that demons can cultivate and teach you in the future." Thank you, Master." White Lion was excited and immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Although they were demon kings, in reality, they were just small leaders of the demons. They relied on their talent and didn't have any particularly complete cultivation methods. Wanting to improve their strength was simply a dream. White Lion had a deep understanding of Xiao Hua's cultivation. Moreover, in Xiao Hua's eyes, there was no difference between demons and humans. Since he said that he would guide them in their cultivation, he would naturally guide them. This was much more practical than some kind of spiritual wine or any so-called bestowment. Get up. Xiao Hua says with a smile, this old man is just talking about it now. This old man doesn't even know where to find the cultivation technique that the evil spirit cultivates. Speaking up to this point, Xiao Hua's mind flashed as he came to a realization. That's right, the Copper Pillar Nation's star plucking tower. Other nations must also have their own auctions. My Black Cloud Ridge has an elemental or mine. Why would I be afraid of not being able to find cultivation techniques? Baisha, tell He Xiong about this, and then discuss it with Qin Xiaoyao or Xiao Jian. Let them send some disciples out to bid. Yes, I understand. Baisha replied respectfully. Soon after, Xiao Hua entered the essence stone mine and went to the deepest part. He collected more essence stones before coming up. In just a dozen days, Xiao Hua's mind and primordial spirit had improved greatly. The amount of essence stones he collected was more than 10% more than the previous time. While Xiao Hua was overjoyed, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The effect of this secret technique far surpassed any secret technique he had ever seen. He really didn't know where Do Shan Jun had obtained this mysterious secret technique. Could it be that my appearance can't compare to that guy's, and my character can't compare to his? After Xiao Hua cursed in his heart, he flew to the front of Dao Shan's tomb. Dao Shan's tomb already had weeds, but fortunately, when the 5-brigade cloud diagram array bombarded the Black Cloud Ridge, this place was not affected too much, and the tomb was still there. Xiao Hua squatted down, extended his hand, and pulled out the weeds near the tomb one by one. He stared at the small tomb for a long time, as if he was thinking about something, but also as if he was comprehending something. After half a day, he finally stood up and flew towards the cave. However, before he could reach the cave, Xiao Hua stopped again. He saw that not far from the cave was a military camp, and on the east side of the military camp was a hill that wasn't too steep. Right now, there was a person holding an axe and dancing on the side of the hill. Who else could this person be other than Yuan Ya? Xiao Hua watched for a moment, and saw that Yuan Ya's axe technique was extremely methodical. It was obvious that someone had taught him. He couldn't help but smile, and descended from the sky. Yuan Ya was the first person he saw in the hidden immortal continent. Now that there were many people in the Black Cloud Ridge, Xiao Hua didn't have time to care about Yuan Ya. Previously, he had asked Liu Yi once, but there was no news. Dao! Master! Hearing the commotion, Yuan Ya put away the demon axe, hurriedly bowed and called out. It seemed that he was going to call him Daoist Master, but when he was about to say it, he changed his words. Looking at Yuan Ya, Xiao Hua was quite emotional. People would always change. It had only been a little more than a year. A young man who was lying on a tree in the Jiangchao temple and peeking at him practicing his fist techniques, now knew how to deal with people and adapt to changes. Ya, how are you now? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Master, this one is very well. Yuan Ya did not speak much, and his answers were very proper. Xiao Hua knew Yuan Ya's personality and asked, what about Changling? How is her and your master's plan to revive the country? Why are you not with her? Master, Changling and Master are working day and night, and have sent out many soldiers, and also issued many orders. Looking at Changling, it seems to be going smoothly. The smile on her face is increasing. As to the exact extent, this one does not know. This one can only cultivate as much as possible so that I can protect her on the battlefield in the future. Who taught you this axe technique? It looks very good. Xiao Hua asked with interest. General Kang Li taught me. Xiao Hua chatted with Yuan Ya for a while, and then asked probingly, that Changling still does not admit that she is Dia Wu? You did not think that you were mistaken? At the mention of Dia Wu, Yuan Ya was slightly bashful. He said with a smile, Master, this one will not be mistaken. However, right now, Changling is focused on reviving the country. This one cannot distract her. After Jiang country revives, let's talk about it. Ian, you are very right. Xiao Hua nodded and then said, however, you also need to focus on cultivating and protecting Changling for Elder Mo. If there is nothing, you need to be by her side. You may not be able to ask about her well-being, but if you see her unhappy, you can think of ways to make her happy. Master, this one does not understand. Yuan Ye's face was slightly red as he answered honestly. Xiao Hua was speechless and said helplessly, "All right, you should cultivate. If you have any questions about cultivation, you can ask Qin Xiaoyao, or Liu Yi. If that does not work, come find this old man." "All right, Master," Yuan Ye answered. "This one has nothing to ask for now." "All right then." Xiao Hua knew that it was boring to talk to Yuan Ye, but he had not expected it to be even more boring now. He could only wave his hand and fly into the air. Yuan Ye did not respectfully send Master off like the black bear spirit. He looked at Xiao Hua's back and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, a smile from the bottom of his heart. When he returned to the residence, only Li Xiong was sitting cross-legged in the seclusion room. His disciples were gone. They must have taken the sky-mending pill and been chased out by Li Xiong. Seeing Xiao Hua return, Li Xiong hurriedly stood and took out several jade bottles. He said with a smile, "This one's disciples have taken Daoist Xiao's spirit pills. These are the remaining ones. Daoist, please accept them." "Haha, Daoist Li, there is no need to be so courteous with this one." Xiao Hua waved his hand, resolutely refusing to accept. "Our friendship is still shallow. You don't know this, but this Xiao will never let go of anything that falls into this Xiao's hands, and this Xiao will never accept anything that this Xiao gives away. All right, since Daoist Xiao is so straightforward, then this one will accept." Li Xiong did not say much. He put away the jade bottles and said, "Daoist Xiao, this one and my disciples are indebted to you for saving our lives. Moreover, this one and my disciples have not fully recovered, so it is not safe for us to go elsewhere. Therefore, this one has decided to accept Daoist Xiao's invitation and stay in the Black Cloud Ridge for a while until Daoist Xiao returns from the Jade Pavilion gathering." "Good." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, "Thank you, Daoist Li. However, I still have a condition." Li Xiong said with a straight face. Xiao Hua was stunned and said curiously, "Daoist Li, please speak. If this one can satisfy you, this one will definitely agree. The spirit wine that Daoist Xiao took out yesterday tasted very good. This one does not have many hobbies, but I like to taste wine." Li Xiong blinked and said, "If Daoist Xiao asks this one to stay, then I will need a jar of spirit wine every day." "Haha, no problem." Xiao Hua did not expect Li Xiong to joke with him. He clapped his hands and took out a few jade bottles and said with a smile, "Daoist Li, please taste these first. When this one goes to the Jade Pavilion gathering, I will leave behind enough spirit wine." "Thank you." Li Xiong did like the spirit wine, but fundamentally speaking, it was just an excuse. Why would he care if Xiao Hua took out more spirit wine? He reached out to take the spirit wine and agreed to the matter. Soon after, Xiao Hua sat down again. He waved his hand and took out a row of magic tools. He said with a smile, "Not only the spirit wine, this one also has some magic tools. Daoist Li, please take a look. Which ones are suitable for your disciples?" Li Xiong was startled. Any cultivator's magic tool, if it wasn't bestowed by their masters, then it was obtained by their own luck. Gifts from others were extremely rare. For someone like Xiao Hua, who gave away a pile of magic tools in one go, other than those unrated magic tools used by Dao soldiers, which cultivator's magic tools could be given away like this? If Xiao Hua regarded his disciples as Daoist soldiers, wouldn't that be slapping his own face? However, Li Xiong knew that Xiao Hua was not such a mean person. Moreover, with a sweep of his divine sense, he immediately knew the rarity of these magic tools. Li Xiong hurriedly stood up and waved his hand, saying, "Daoist Xiao, this one and this one's disciples have received too much help from Daoist Xiao. Why don't Daoist keep these magic tools in your hands and wait for a fated person in the future?" "Daoist Li, what is fated? What is not fated?" Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Daoist Xiao's disciples meeting this one is fated. This one has these magic tools in his hands is fated. Why is Daoist Xiao so polite? Alas, okay." Li Xiong casually picked up a magic tool and looked at it carefully. He found that this magic tool was definitely refined by a great refiner. It was far better than what he had seen before. Of course, he was not willing to let his disciples lose this opportunity, so he could only grit his teeth and agree. Chapter 3565. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "It's a pity that I don't have the magic treasure you want, and I'm afraid that none of your Jindan disciples are suitable. My magic treasure was taken away by Leng Qingge. I'm afraid it's sealed somewhere in the bronze pillar state." Li Xiong smiled bitterly. "After I recover my cultivation, I'll go to the bronze pillar state and maybe I can get it. As for my useless Jindan disciples, let them find a few magic treasures to use first." Xiao Hua nodded. "You can tell Xiao Yao about this and let him go to the auction to buy some suitable magic treasures." "I know." Li Xiong nodded, and then Xiao Hua asked Liu Yi to call in Li Xiong's many disciples. Each disciple chose a magic treasure. These disciples, including the Jindan disciples, all had joy in their eyes. They all bowed and thanked Xiao Hua. After the disciples left, Li Xiong returned the rest of the magic treasures to Xiao Hua and said, "Zhenren Xiao, I heard you say that you're going to the Yaotai gathering. How much do you know about it?" Xiao Hua slightly shakes his head. "I know very little about the Yaotai gathering. Other than knowing that we Taoist cultivators must participate in the Yaotai gathering if we want to be teachers of a country, here is the approximate location of the Yaotai gathering." Li Xiong nodded, looked at Xiao Hua and said word by word, "If I hadn't been to the Black Cloud Ridge before, maybe I would have advised you to go to the Yaotai gathering. But look at the current situation of the Black Cloud Ridge, look at Zhenren Xiao's spirit of killing the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State, and I heard that Zhenren Xiao also erected a Daoist stone tablet in the Bronze Pillar State. I advise you not to go to the Yaotai gathering and walk into a trap." Xiao Hua was shocked. He knew that Li Xiong was the state preceptor of the Li Kingdom and must have participated in the Yaotai gathering. He wanted to ask for advice, but he didn't expect Li Xiong to advise him not to go. He also said that the Yaotai gathering was a trap, which really confused him. "What does Zhenren Li mean?" Xiao Hua asked in a low voice. "To tell you the truth, Zhenren Xiao, when I went to the Yaotai gathering to fight for the position of the state preceptor, I had the same idea as Zhenren Xiao. I wanted to be an influential figure on the hidden immortal continent and make achievements that no one before me could achieve." Li Xiong's eyes flashed with a trace of fanaticism, as if he was recalling his glorious days. However, this fanaticism disappeared in a flash, followed by helplessness and bitterness. "It's a pity that we took the wrong path from the beginning. How could we reach the peak if the direction was wrong?" Xiao Hua looked at Li Xiong with a smile and didn't interrupt him. Li Xiong looked like he was in his 20s. Presumably, he had altered his appearance after reaching the nascent soul stage. However, from his tone, he seemed to have experienced a lot. Xiao Hua also knew that Li Xiong was a person with a story and had more experience than him. Calmly listening to his thoughts would be of great benefit to him. Daoist Master Xiao isn't the first person to walk the path of Taoism on the continent of Confucian cultivators, and he definitely won't be the last. Li Xiong opened his mouth again. "Once upon a time, this Li also had the same idea. I wanted to establish a Daoist sect, raise Daoist cultivators, become the master of a country, and build a Daoist empire. Unfortunately, the Yaotai gathering pushed this Li to the bottom of the valley. Although this Li was lucky enough to obtain the lot to establish a country, the Li country's downfall made this Li completely lose the heart to contend for hegemony. What's going on with the Yaotai gathering?" Xiao Hua's brows furrowed even tighter. What Qin Xiaoyaro said before was originally unclear. Xiao Hua thought it would be enough for him to go take a look and register with his own cultivation. Who knew it would be so troublesome? Xiao Hua couldn't help but ask, "What exactly is the Yaotai gathering like? It seems to be different every time." The Yaotai gathering that Qin Haoyue and this Li participated in was different. After all, 10 years of planning is enough for the Immortal Palace to come up with many sinister ideas to kill nascent Daoist cultivators. Even if this Li told you, It might not be useful. It might even be harmful to you. Li Xiong shook his head and said, with Daoist Master Xiao's cultivation, it's best not to participate in it. 10 years. The Immortal Palace? Xiao Hua was shocked. He asked curiously, Qin Xiaoyaro said it's once every 5 years. How did it become 10 years? Moreover, isn't this a matter of the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent? How is it related to the Immortal Palace? Besides, as far as this Xiao knows, the Immortal Palace doesn't intervene in the specific affairs of the hidden immortal continent. Li Xiong sneered, what Daoist Master Xiao knows is just the tip of the iceberg outside the glacier. Under the glacier, how can ordinary people know the full picture of the iceberg? The hidden immortal continent is the continent of Confucian cultivators, and the Immortal Palace is the holy land of Confucian cultivators. If the Immortal Palace doesn't control the hidden immortal continent, could it be that the Leiyin Temple controls the hidden immortal continent? 5 years is a very long time for ordinary people, but for cultivators, it's just a blink of an eye. How can cultivators grow up? Only once every 10 years can the Immortal Palace harvest their energy. Xiao Hua instantly understood a little. He narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, so, this Xiao understands. The so-called Yarotai Gathering is a grand event for the Immortal Palace to strangle the kindling of Taoism, and the position of the state preceptor is the bait? Since that's the case, why? Yes, since you know it's the bait, why hasn't Daoist Master Xiao dispelled the idea of participating at this time? Li Xiong said with a smile, it's because this bait is really tempting. Of course, we can't rule out that many Taoism disciples don't know the inside story. Even this Li doesn't have any real evidence. Everything is just this Li's own speculation. Lucky thoughts, considerable expectations, unbearable curiosity, all make people overlook the potential danger. Xiao Hua nodded and sighed. Daoist Master Xiao, have you heard of the Yarokai Gathering? Li Xiong suddenly asked. Xiao Hua shook his head. This Xiao is rather ignorant and inexperienced. Previously, I was concentrating on cultivation, so I really don't know about this. It's said that as long as a Confucian cultivator can cultivate to the sage realm, they can receive the invitation of Emperor Go Chen and Empress Dongming to participate in the Heavenly Bestowal Banquet. Because this Heavenly Bestowal Banquet is held at Empress Dongming's Yarokai Pool, it's also called the Yarokai Gathering. Li Xiong explained, participating in the Yarokai Gathering means that the Confucian cultivator has an extraordinary status and has obtained the recognition of the Heavenly Palace. And the Yarotai Gathering imitates the Yarokai Gathering. As long as a Daoist cultivator participates in the Yarotai Gathering, they can be considered to have obtained the recognition of Confucian cultivators, which is to say, the Heavenly Palace. This kind of idea of learning both civil and martial arts and selling them to the imperial family is actually the idea of Confucian cultivators. When it's put on the heads of Taoism cultivators, it's already changing the concept of cultivators. Li Xiong said again, actually, Daoist Master, think about it again. As a country's teacher, participating in the affairs of the country, isn't it the Confucian cultivators' way of entering the world? It's completely different from the emergence of our Taoism. If Daoist Master becomes the state teacher, isn't it because you've fallen into the scheme of Confucian cultivators? How can you still have time to cultivate? How can you still improve your cultivation? Of course, on the hidden immortal continent, it's forbidden to trade high-level Daoist cultivation techniques. However, in the Yarotai Gathering, there are high-level Daoist cultivation techniques as rewards. Daoist Master can certainly obtain this high-level Daoist cultivation technique, but Daoist Master will also become a delicious cake in the eyes of other Daoist cultivators. They'll constantly probe and harass you. How can Daoist Master cultivate calmly? Li Xiong finally spoke his true thoughts. He was advising Xiao Hua to give up the idea of establishing a country. Hiss. Xiao Hua inhaled sharply. He knew that this was what Li Xiong and the imperial preceptor had seen through. This was also the overt scheme of the Immortal Palace. The brilliance of the Immortal Palace was that 1, they used the competition of the Yarotai Gathering to cut off a portion of Daoist cultivators. 2. They used the name of the imperial preceptor to assimilate a portion of Daoist cultivators. 3. In the competition between countries, Daoist cultivators would fight with Daoist cultivators. 4. They used high-level Daoist cultivation techniques as bait to once again lure Daoist cultivators to kill each other. With such heavy killing, no wonder the hidden immortal continent did not have Daoist cultivators. Different from the Dawn Rain continent, the hidden immortal continent's Daoist sects were still not flourishing. Li Xiong really was sincerely trying to dissuade Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, when he saw Xiao Hua's expression change from astonishment to calmness, he smiled bitterly again. As long as it was a cultivator, which one of them wasn't a person with a firm will? How could they change their mind based on a few words from others? It seems that Daoist Master Xiao still plans to go to the Yaotai gathering? Li Xiong asked softly. Xiao Hua nodded. Yes, I did not know that the Yaotai gathering was so particular, and rashly agreed to Changling. Since I have spoken, I cannot go back on it. I must go. Also, I said that I want to establish a sect. If I do not have the mind to move forward, and have to avoid even a small Yaotai gathering, how can I stand in the world? Li Xiong shook his head slightly. Hadn't he said such bold words decades ago? Humans, even if they were cultivators, would never give up unless they hit a wall and got a big bump on their head. The Yaotai gathering is held at Yaotai Mountain. It is controlled by an organization called Star Sovereign Hall. The present master of Star Sovereign Hall should be called Kong Hongwu, and is a disciple of a first-class scholarly family. This Star Sovereign Hall is said to belong to the scholarly cultivators of the hidden immortal continent, but I do not know who controls it. At the Yaotai gathering, other than the Imperial Tutor's lot, there are also some rare treasures of Yaotai Mountain. Anyone who attends the Yaotai gathering can obtain them. Every few times, Star Sovereign Hall will take out some rare treasures of the hidden immortal continent, and put them on Yaotai Mountain for my sect disciples to fight over. On the surface, it looks generous, but in reality, it is to have my sect disciples kill each other. Back then, let's not talk about it. This is my impression of the Yaotai gathering. Li Xiong sighed, and took out the jade eye he had prepared long ago. He handed it to Xiao Hua and said, I know that Daoist Master is far stronger than I was back then, but Daoist Master must remember, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. You must be low-key. Back then at the Yaotai gathering, none of the cultivators who were stronger than I could get the Imperial Tutor's lot. Heh, this is my specialty. Xiao Hua took the jade eye and answered with a smile. He did not ask more about Star Sovereign Hall and the treasures. If Li Xiong knew, he would remember it in the jade eye. If Li Xiong did not know, it was useless to ask. 12. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,